Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees meeting to order at approximately 2:10 p.m. on Tuesday, December 12th. Would you please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start the roll call, there's actually going to be two meetings taking place. The Board of Trustees is convening first. We're going to go into closed session right away. Everybody here can stay here. Okay, I'm not asking anybody to leave. And after we complete our closed session, which won't take very long, just a few minutes, then the Board of Trustees is going to recess, and the Plan Commission is going to call themselves to order. And the first items that will take place this afternoon will be the Plan Commission items. When the Plan Commission is finished with their meeting, then the Board will reconvene to address those items that we need to address that came out of the Plan Commission, as well as the items that are on the agenda for the Board. Okay. It'll be confusing for a few moments, but I think it'll clear itself up. Okay. Roll call, please.
Lino?
Here.
Duffy?
Here.
Baker?
Here.
Adamko?
Here.
Bell?
Here.
Enquist?
Here.
And Bertle? Here.
Approval of the agenda is published.
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes as published.
Make that motion.
We've got 3 sets of them.
3 sets.
Pardon?
Are you making the motion for all of them?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
I have one
I'll second it.
Thank you.
one small correction on page 8. Under Historical Society, on line 22, construction will be commencing on the new barn. You're nowhere near that.
Oh,
Okay, just, you could put in there, they reviewed
okay, plans for
the
Bartle.
plan, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I also have a question on, I've printed page number 4. I don't know what page it is, but it's on line 4, under the utilities, the grinder station. It says, Mike Shaw recently discovered that the utilities was not paying for the electricity. Is that a correct statement? I just didn't.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Any other corrections, additions, deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I would ask that you turn off any noisemakers, telephones that you may have. Put them on silence or vibrate, please. Comments. Does anybody in the audience care to make a comment about a non-agenda item? Going once? What? Correspondence?
None, sir.
None.
Well, there's a letter
Oh,
for Christie
sorry.
Sellers.
Card. Thank you for Christie. And then another letter for Northern Door Children's Center, related to the holidays.
Okay. Anybody have any correspondence they want to add?
We just were handled too.
No.
That's not, okay.
Is this,
No.
okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to make a motion, we convene into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851C, discuss personnel employee benefits, consider a motion to reconvene in open session, consider a motion for action if appropriate. Motion by Lino.
Second.
Roll call. Lino, yes?
Baker, yes?
Cadago, yes.
Bell, yes.
Duffy, yes.
Enquist, yes?
Bertle, yes.
Okay, we are now in closed session. We would ask that staff please leave. Okay, we're now back in open session, so
Come on in.
come on in.
I can't get the top off. Here, let me see your pen. I actually have a
Sharp.
knife. I have a knife.
Uh-oh, in a public building where there's a sign that says no weapons?
It's pink, so I can't.
Oh, sure, that's all right. Did you get it?
Welcome back.
Hi.
Hi. We're glad you could join us. While we were in closed session, the board took it upon themselves to offer a resolution of expression of thanks to you, Zeke, which I'd like to read.
Okay.
Okay. Whereas Zeke Jackson has served as the administrator for the Village of Sister Bay since October 1st, 2013, but has tendered his resignation as he has accepted a job offer in the Village of Waterford and will now be serving as the administrator for that municipality. And whereas his tenure as village administrator, Zeke oversaw an incredible amount of development in Sister Bay, including but not limited to the beach expansion project, Bayshore Drive reconstruction, electrical line burial, performance pavilion, and was instrumental in obtaining grant funding for those projects and seeing that a number of new commercial developments, including the development of the Sister Bay Marketplace property, came to fruition. And whereas Zeke worked tirelessly to enhance the village's festivals and special events and was in charge of some fantastic fireworks displays, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sister Bay assembled this 12th day of December 2017 in their own right and on behalf of all citizens of the village does hereby extend to Zeke Jackson our sincere thanks and appreciation for a job well done. We wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors and we will miss you.
Thank you very much.
And to go along with that, we have a plaque to present to you.
Okay.
There's cake. I just have to get a knife.
Oh, wow.
Now I'll take your knife.
Thanks to
Oh, I don't think you
everybody.
want to cut that.
Most definitely.
Very well. Thank you.
This
Really
one.
appreciate it.
Oh, no, you want this. I thought you were going to cut the cake with it. No.
Okay, with that, the village board will go into recess. And we'll turn it over to the plan commission.
Thank you. 2:21, we'll call the Plan Commission to order on Tuesday, December 12th, in the year 2017. Janelle, could you please take roll call?
Baker,
Here?
Bell,
Here?
Bertle,
Here.
Gretzmacher,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
and Shumway.
Here. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I so move.
Motion by Gretzmacher,
I'll second it.
second by Baker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Comments and correspondence. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the Plan Commission on a non-agenda issue? Okay, everybody's here for a reason. Okay. All right, item, yes?
We're going to be ice cream within.
Janelle, what's the answer to that question? Okay, item number 2 on the agenda, public hearing on a request from Premier Real Estate Management to allow apartment buildings as a conditional use on the old Sister Bay Quarry site. Village of Sister Bay, parcel number 1810007312811A3 and parcel number 1810007312811A4, which property has been assigned an address at 2581 South Bayshore Drive. There is some question about that, seeing that there is not access.
That address is incorrect. So we need to hold that as an unaddressed parcel. For the purpose of this meeting, we will sign an address for permitting purposes.
Perfect. Okay, do you,
I'll give a quick lead in.
okay?
Okay. So ultimately, this is the old, what we refer to at the staff level as the small quarry site. This is a property that was acquired by the Village of Sister Bay in order to ameliorate a public nuisance associated with silica dust that was flying across the community. Subsequently, we sought out a developer to do something we thought would be of benefit to the community. That developer is Pre3. We've been working with them over the last several months. We do have an offer to purchase from Pre3, an amount of $300,000 for the property. They've done their due diligence thus far on the site and are asking for the conditional use permit to allow apartments in the B1, which is allowed as a conditional use. So just to give a quick run through, Plan Commission looked at this from a preliminary review at its last meeting, and now we're coming ahead with the conditional use permit request as a part of this meeting. So just for everybody in the audience, this is very similar to what Pre3 did over at Niagara Ridge. They sort of have a
Tell
stop.
them where that is.
Over by the water tower, right in that general area near Youngworth.
Old ball field.
Yep, the old ball field. So what we're looking at is 12-unit apartment buildings that will have lapboard siding, finished exterior with shutters, similarly depicted to what is up here. This is the design they actually put together. There will be garages associated with the units. And there will be a total of 4 buildings. If you'll bear with me just a second to zoom out. We had some technical difficulties with our main projector and had to pull in the backup. So, get out one more time here. Did have some conversation with Chief Hecht prior to the meeting, and this was based on some concerns from the Plan Commission that we'd be able to get fire access with our ladder trucks to all points. Met with the folks from Pre-3, they said they would be amenable to creating some loops in here so that our fire apparatus can get to where they need to go. They'll have to look at this from a grading standpoint. What I'll ask Plan Commission to do is to approve this conditional upon Chief Hecht's subsequent approval after he has an opportunity to revise, or to review a revised set of plans. But ultimately, we'll be talking about possibly, we need to look at grades, but creating as much connectivity in here as we can. So potentially looping here, potentially looping here, potentially looping here, potentially looping there. It may be all or one of those, or anything in between, depending on what they can make from a grading perspective, so that Chief Hecht and our fire department can get their apparatus where they need to go. Looking down just a little bit. Interior plan set, there's nothing, I think, super exciting at looking at a set of blueprints, especially for those in the audience who are trying to discern what that says from way back there, so I'll sort of skip through that piece. But ultimately, they're 12-unit buildings. That's it from a zoomed out facade perspective, side and rear, and then fronts. There's a landscaping plan which was looked at the last meeting. Sarah, do you have your board? The last Plan Commission meeting, we asked Sarah and Pre-3 to pull together a little more detailed landscaping plan showing what it is they hope to accomplish. I'll be your Vanna White.
All right, great.
All right. So, Sarah, if you want to narrate.
So it's going to be identical to what we have at Niagara Ridge right now for the perimeter plantings, which are the ones right around the buildings here. And then we plan to keep as much vegetation as we can around the perimeter of the site, so it will be pretty much enveloped by the existing trees that are there right now.
Any questions on landscaping at this
Do
time?
we have an aerial of that property that shows the perimeter of the trees?
Existing? Yeah, I can pull that up. Bear with me.
I'll take that.
So, Sarah, can you do that all right? Bear with me one moment. I'm gonna plug just a second.
So you're not, your landscaping plan is more around the buildings, you don't plan on doing anything on the perimeter?
We will clear, clear the space we need for the development, and then these would be trees that we plant,
Okay.
and then the ones right alongside
Sure.
the, right against the building.
Yeah,
But
it's a pretty wooded site as is, so I'll get that shown up here. If you bear with me.
Around the edge,
Yes, sir.
not in the center.
As soon as the internet decides to cooperate. Or not.
And Sarah, what is the total acreage again of these two parcels?
It's about 12.
Joel? Well,
About 12.
and this layout is just on the parcel to the north.
It's only at, okay, this is
Yes.
only on the one parcel.
Yes.
Ma'am.
And how many acres is that parcel?
That's about, so actually, let me pull up here. I was gonna say 7's off the top of my head. So if for unit density purposes, we were gonna take a look at that, we potentially could recombine these through CSM if that's something.
Well, because there is a density requirement, which
There
is
is.
6 per acre.
Yep,
If
so-
you have 7 acres, that's 42,
So
no, 48.
I believe there is a override provision in the chapter.
There is?
Okay. So we would need from memory, I think, a 2/3 vote.
It's 7.05
Yeah.
acres. And the other one's 5.47.
I thought this was the smaller site.
No, this is the,
It's this one.
so we'll zoom in right on these.
Okay, I thought you called it the smaller site. That's what,
The small, this small one.
I see. Okay.
These guys are pulled up, I don't know if that's
Yeah,
on the screen, but
Well, I'm on it on mine, but for whatever reason, it's not throwing up here when I disconnect. I don't get a read. Yes, it was.
And have you verified the setbacks?
Yes, ma'am, they're showing on the building envelope. So if you look at the dash line on those plans set up.
Okay, unit densities on page 18 of the zoning code, which is the R2 multifamily residence. If you look in B3, which is where this is located,
B1.
excuse me, B1, if we allow a conditional use permit, the R2 multifamily residence criteria applies to that. So under unit densities, it says the maximum dwelling unit density shall be 6 units per acre. The Plan Commission may modify the density standard by a 3/4 majority vote of the commissioners, but only if supplemental design elements or improvements are incorporated into the project which compensate for the increased density. Amended ordinance September of 2012. So we do have that ability.
I'd say going from a rock quarry to an apartment building is a step up. It's my fault.
I don't disagree with you. I just follow the code. And while we're waiting for this, I don't know how you intended that remark in the last Pulse article, Jackson, but I'm going to take that as a compliment. Thank you.
It is.
I'm just looking at the black screen. I've got everything right here, but we're not throwing it there. Chris, can we pull your projector out?
If I can see it here,
Okay.
that's fine.
So this is all the wooded area right in here. So aside from the back end here,
Right.
Sarah, hold your plan set up.
So it's the other lot that's pretty barren, not
Yeah,
this
the other
one.
lot's completely barren. But
Okay,
if you look
that's
at-
all I needed to see.
Yeah,
That's fine. Thank you.
sure.
Do you want to comment on anything else?
I wish technology would come around.
Well, you had a piece of work or no? You pointing out or you?
I mean,
It's okay.
we're looking at it right there, but when I'm looking at an aerial map and I've got nothing but black screen, but I can see the outline of everything.
Want me to swap out the
No,
projectors?
it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you, though, Chris. Okay, at 2:32, I will open the public hearing to have anybody speak to or for or against this project. Please raise your hand, and if you're called on, state your name and address for the record, please.
No one's here for this.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Name's Steve Usinski, address is 10519 Fieldcrest Road. We're basically the property to the south of Sarah's proposed development.
South of where?
South of Sarah's proposed development, we're the adjacent property to it.
Okay, we're talking about the,
This is Sarah and
oh,
that is
that's
Sarah.
Sarah.
We have two Sarahs today.
We're both on Fieldcrest. Please, go ahead.
Have I got the right public hearing here? In general, I think the apartment complex is a good step up from the quarry. I'm all in favor of it. I'd like to see it successful. I'm impressed with the engineering that was done, the surveying, the work and thought that's been put into it so far. I think it's got a lot of potential. I also wanted to let the Plan Commission know that sending out these notices to people with certified mail, I thought worked very well. The post office didn't lose it. I did get a little confused though, because when you sent out the one sketch, this three-colored one, which I think is the drawing Sarah's got, and I compared that to the drawings that were part of the Plan Commission package that showed the elevations, it's a different building. So I'm not sure which one is relevant. I'm assuming what she has is the current plan.
This is the same thing that was projected?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
The plans that I got off of the Plan Commission packet that went out, those elevations on there are a different building. It shows a different,
It's the exact same footprint of building, but the siding, I believe, didn't reflect the board and batten siding.
yeah, the siding was different, the gable ends were different. I think the porches looked a little different. There was an intermediate roof between the first and second floor. So,
It may have been. We were working on getting these plans completed, so.
okay. Yeah, but I mean, this looks fine to me. I'm more concerned with the site plan and the footprint. When I was looking at the footprint of the building, one thing I was a little confused about is that, like, for example, the concrete apron in front of the garages, I think it shows like 96 feet. The building width on the floor plan was 88 feet. I wasn't sure if they had the right one drawn in, but you guys can follow up on that. I do have about 3 different issues I want to talk about. One is the setback requirements, especially along our south line, the 10-foot. I looked at that with the topographic elevations that were put together by Phase 4. They look fine. One thing I'm concerned about, though, is that curve in that road that goes to access those garages, that's only going to be 5 feet off of our property line. And one thing that bothers me is on the east end of that curve, it's about an existing grade, but at the west end, it's a 2 to 3 foot drop down to our property. And one thing that isn't shown in the topographic detail is that along that whole line between our property and theirs, there's actually a stone berm that's in there. And if you look up towards the east end of that property, there's actually a check dam up in there too. It's about 20 or 30 feet into the property. And I've walked that south line during a thunderstorm or a sudden spring thaw, and you can actually hear water running on the property for the apartments. But it doesn't come onto our property, and I kind of figured out pretty quickly that what happened is somebody built that dam along there to go and keep that water on the adjacent property and direct it more down the hill. And if you look up near where the check dam is, there's actually a ravine in there too that's about 3 foot deep. And that's not shown. And what I'm concerned about is that if you have that asphalt driveway 5 feet off the line, that we're gonna end up with all that water, because the way it looks to me now, the water from that driveway is gonna come down towards our property, and we're basically gonna end up with being the holding pond for at least the road between the apartments, I think it's Unit 3 or something, and where that hill is at the very end. So I'm concerned about that. I think that has to be addressed. Let's see here. I also noticed too that on the plans, they called for DOT seed mix number 40, which in my experience, that's fine for like lawns. It's basically a turf mix. I'm a little concerned though that you might find that that's not going to work on the steeper parts, because that ground is highly erodible. Where we've gone and managed to scrape off turf on our lot by accident, a couple of thunderstorms and that soil's gone. It's down to bedrock. So you really need to anchor that somehow and work at that. DOT 70 or 75 might be a more appropriate mix. I've seen that used on DOT projects. The other problem I have is that in the wintertime, where that curve is only 5 feet off of our yard, that's going to end up being a snow dump into our property. Because I did snow removal for 18 years. And one of the problems you have is that you can't push the snow to the east on that road because you've got that big hill there. And you can't, if you have that road past Unit 3, it's much easier to push it towards that curve and off the end of that curve than it is to go anywhere else with it. I don't think you want to truck it out. And that means it's all going to end up dumping on our property. And the problem with that snow melt is that frequently, especially like an apartment complex, there's a lot of road salt mixed in with that. And if that kills the grass and trees on our property, then we've got another erosion problem there. So. So what I'm thinking is, when I'm looking at this, because I don't want to just bring up a problem, I want to bring up a solution too. If you take the 2 milled buildings and you slide those 2 buildings basically northwest about 6 or 7 feet, you get that road out of that 10-foot setback area, and you've actually got some space, at least according to your drawing, on the north end of that property. And if the only thing that's going to be in that setback area on the north side is the very corner of that dead-end asphalt access driveway to those garages, just clip off that corner, nobody's going to miss it. And I think that solves the problem. You don't end up with that steep grade down onto our property, and you give more room for like snow removal or something like that. Another concern I have is with renters. Now, for 17 years, I lived in an almost identical complex to what they're building. It was 4 buildings, 2 of them were 1 bedroom, 2 were 2 bedroom. And the thing I noticed is that when you have high-density residential, and this is like, what, 7 residential units per acre almost, or maybe a little over, people that rent those properties look at open land and they say, hey, playground, it's real crowded over here, we can go across the street. The apartment complex that I lived in, there was a 2-lane road and then an open field, which was actually being farmed. The problem was that people from the apartment complex would go across the street to run their ATVs, their dirt bikes, the kids would play over there. And the guy that was originally farming it, he finally walked away from a 10-year lease because he got tired of soda cans in his hayfield. He had a winter wheat field, the snowmobiles ruined it, and he had had enough. And the culmination of the whole thing was, I think after about 8 years of this, the kids from one of the apartment complexes wanted to roast marshmallows on a campfire. Their parents told them they couldn't do it behind the apartment building, so they went across the street and started a campfire. Got out of hand, it was like July or August, and they ended up with a brush fire. The apartment complex was not happy, the renters weren't happy, the city that put out the fire wanted to recoup their money, the guy that owned the land wasn't happy, it ended up being a big mess. I don't want to see it happen to this property or this project. I think this has got a lot of potential. But, yeah, Zeke.
Steve, when you were walking the property, did you see about right here where our existing Sister Bay teenagers have got their hangout spot? Requisite with the beer cans and the marshmallow pit?
No, I didn't see that. The one on
Right
our,
now.
the one on our property is behind our big pole shed
Okay.
down in there. And if you want to know how you get to feeling bad about this stuff, all you got to do is put a wine cooler bottle out on your lawn and then run over it with your lawnmower. When you get done after about an hour of picking up broken glass, you start to realize that this isn't a good idea. And that's happened a couple times on our property. So I'm worried about that on this property. The rents that we were paying where I lived are probably corrected for inflation about the same to what you're getting or thinking about on this one, be somewhere between $900 and $1,000 a month. So I'm concerned that we don't have this. And I also noticed too that on the apartment complex I lived in, I got to be pretty good friends with the second owner of the buildings where I was. And he was a pretty decent guy. And the manager for the apartment, of course, reported to him. The problem is when you have these problems going on with adjacent properties, including the residences behind our apartment, the manager after a while gets to the point where, well, what do you want me to do about it? Because he's talked to him, nothing happens. The owner frequently has no idea what's going on. And until I started actually doing maintenance on the buildings or snow removal for them, he had no idea that some of these problems even existed. So there's that built-in problem with people with these things. What I'm thinking that might be appropriate here, and what did work on the complex I was living in, is putting up a fence along the south line. And I don't think it would have to be the whole thing, because some parts are pretty densely wooded, and there's that little ravine in there and other things. And, but I think that that might keep people, or send a message that your dogs, your kids, everything else, stay on that side. This is not a playground or an extension of a park for the apartments. And I think everybody, good fences would make good neighbors in that case. Oh, and to keep this project moving, if you want me to meet with Phase 4 or you and talk about fencing or something, I'd be happy to drive up to Green Bay, wherever your office is, and meet with you so we can get this resolved and get it moving ahead.
Steve, are you showing on the map right here? This is the project area. I know this is blurry, and I apologize, everybody. This is your parcel right here, correct?
Looks like it from here. It's a little hard to see, but
Just immediately to the south?
yes.
So on that drawing, can you show us, does it get to, where are the 2 lots?
Right here.
I understand now, I'm saying the pre-3 lots, where will these buildings come to? They're not gonna be in the open area at all?
They'll be in this general area. So there isn't as much vegetation here, but there's certainly, some along the line. This is open up, kind of back there.
Right.
There's pretty heavy vegetation when you get up this way.
Well, and so I'm, I'm
You're right.
property next to, right?
Yeah.
And I love the idea of keeping the tree line, however, if you're talking about a 10-foot setback in the driveway within 5 feet, most of those trees are 30+ feet. You're looking at diameter, the ones that are allowed, probably 16 to 18-inch trunks, that if you get within 5 feet of those, I'll guarantee you will ruin all the roots and they'll be dead in 5 years.
So the one area that we're talking about, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, that's just the way it grows up here. But you're talking about an area right here that conflicts there. It probably is very hard to see, but the setback line is dashed right there. When I spoke earlier about meeting the setbacks, the buildings are what I was referring to. We discussed at the last plan commission meeting, one of the conditions of the conditional use permit being the inclusion of this 5-foot driveway encroachment and issuing it as such. Joe, you want to?
Yeah, if I could address that. We can shift that, we can change, shift those two center ones to the north slightly like you suggested. We can make that curve a little more gentle, pull that back. Our intention, and it's difficult to see on this one, but our whatever drainage is on our property, we're gonna maintain on our property, whether that be culverting underneath, so we aren't dumping that whatever water is held back by that check dam that you're referring to. What you're also seeing is the hard surfaces are gonna be directed to stormwater features that'll take the water and treat it prior to discharging it down the hill. So we're gonna be intercepting probably most of that water that's going to you, and by their village ordinance and state ordinance, we have to reduce the rate of runoff. So we won't be increasing it, certainly, and most likely we'll be directing most of that water that's going towards you now back down the hill internally.
So under state statute, any property that gets disturbed over 1 acre in area has to file a SWMP, stormwater management plan, which they will develop that plan. That will then go to our engineers. Our engineers will review that for those runoff items that Joel was just talking about, and
the DNR will.
And the DNR reviews it.
And you mind if I go through and address the
Sure.
concerns? As far as the grass goes, we were proposing that number 40 in the lawn areas around the apartments. What we would also do on slopes like that is would call for an erosion control mat, which just holds that material, holds the soil in place until the grass can establish. And then, on a hill like that, yeah, we could switch mixes to like a number 70 or something that's similar that the DOT uses for establishment. But we definitely would be putting erosion control mat on those slopes because we have the same concerns as you. We don't want that hill slipping out. So, snow, they're gonna have an office here in town, so they'll have an on-site manager. One of the things we can look at is we'd like to maintain as much vegetation on the perimeter of the site. Maybe we could look at, being an on-site manager, we'll have a little more local control, but also maybe we put no trespass, discreetly put some no trespassing signs or a cedar rail fence or something. I'm sure we can come up with something, but I guess most apartment buildings that we've experienced, we don't see a great deal of trespassing. Most of the most people living in an apartment aren't living there because of the lawn or their backyard, right? They're at that stage in life where they aren't probably spending as much time outside for the majority of them. But I think we can address that by we put some signage up or something. I didn't know if you wanted to look at a big. You want to look out your back door and see a big fence, so I'm sure we'll be able to work with you and come up with something that's, equitable.
Yeah, our interests are aligned. So just one thing I want to point out is that our owner of this property also owns the management company. So we're all the same company. So there is very good communication between what's going on the site level, and that that definitely gets bubbled up to the corporate office and to the owner himself. So we don't want a rowdy complex. That just is more work for us, right? And more repairs and more complaints and all of that. So we're on the same page. That's why we've selected this site as compared to Niagara Ridge to have our office building. So we're building where is it?
Yeah, as you come in the front.
Right, yeah, as you come in the front drive, there'll be a leasing office. So that's where our staff will sit to take applications for both projects. So there'll be a physical.
Are you part of phase 4 then?
I'm part of Premier, the developer.
Mach 4.
Mach 4
Mach
is
4
the
is
site
Joel.
engineer.
All right.
Engineering firm.
And then I had one other comment I was going to add here too, or one other concern. Zeke has said blasting is a normal part of any project in Door County. And I know where he's coming from, and I think to an extent he's right. We had our house is that, well, you know where it is. It's that first old farmhouse that's sitting there. It's probably about 100 years old. It's mostly fieldstone foundation. There's an addition that was put on that's concrete block. We tuck pointed that in 2014. We patched all the cracks. after the state highway went through, a couple of developments, and they did that blasting downtown, foundation is all cracked again. I'm concerned that this project is even closer, and what's going to happen to our foundation. If it collapses, I certainly don't plan on paying to have it redone myself. A couple of DOT projects I worked on had a similar problem where in one project they were trying to drain water out of the freeway interchange. Plans called for putting in about 400, 500, 600 feet of 5-foot diameter storm sewer. The problem was they had to go through rock to do it. That required a trench 7 feet wide and 10 foot deep through solid rock. What they did is they brought in a rock trencher that could trench 36 inches wide and 10 foot deep, and in 2 passes they had their trench. And I was standing there talking to the project engineer, and I said, doesn't that get awfully expensive? And he said, well, you got to realize that when you go and blast, what you have is a pile of broken up rock, and now you got to try and find an excavator to go and dig this out, and you end up with usually a wider trench than you need and rocks falling in on what's down there. He says, when the trencher is done, he says, you've got pretty much a flat bottom, ready to put down some bedding gravel, put in your pipe, and you're done. And he was saying that DOT had bought enough fieldstone foundations or concrete foundations that this was a pretty good idea to bring in the trencher. One thing that surprised me was how fast it went, because he was probably booking along at about a foot a minute, doing the 3-foot cut. If you're going to be putting in a lot of storm sewers, water lines, things like that, I'm just throwing it out as an idea that maybe if you looked into that, you might find that that's a viable option, is to just trench it rather than blast everything apart and have rocks flying through the air and dig it out that way. Just one other comment I was going to make too. I walked around a little bit on the property where you're building the apartments, and I noticed there's a lot of young trees in there, and you've also got that big bare ugly spot where the quarry used to be. Just make a suggestion, this is your call. You get a guy with a skid loader and a tree spade on the front of it who knows what he's doing, he could probably move 60 to 80 trees out of there easy, and you could go and transplant them or save them or put them near the edge or put them on that bare spot and cut your costs and also green up the other surrounding areas. So just a suggestion on my part, but that's your call. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Shannon Strabla. I live at 10529 Fieldcrest Road. I'm just next door to the property we were talking about. And I'd just like to know how much of a buffer of the trees is going to remain, because the west end of our property meets up with your property. And I had a hard time telling from the picture how much was going to be there.
You're on the west end?
Yeah.
The trees.
I'm on the east end. The west end of our property meets up with this property that we're speaking of.
So you're over here? Well, we're going to be at least 40 feet from your property. That's our nearest point. Well, the trees kind of start at your corner and then go to the southwest. We are not working in that first 40 feet at all, so closest would be is 40 feet from your property.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I'm gonna leave the public hearing open just in case there's follow-up questions from a Plan Commission conversation. Does the Plan Commission have questions about the project? Concerns?
We do not.
Well, I think Steve's concerns should be taken into consideration.
Do you plan on blasting?
That's a question for Tim. We have to, well, there's more soil on the site than we originally
Yeah,
thought, so it should be reduced from what we.
Right, so it depends on what we end up, how many stormwater features, which we're waiting until we got some feedback from the fire department to see where we wanted connectivity. So there would, probably the only blasting we'd have to do, I'm guessing, would be where we're doing some sort of stormwater feature. And it's most likely gonna be a smaller, like a biofilter or bioinfiltration basin, not a large pond. But I wouldn't, we may be doing blasting.
Okay, there is, where did you find that again, Janelle? That we're gonna follow up with, the board took action.
That was in 2012, I believe.
No, there's a recent one that
No,
we.
the recent one that you just
Oh.
looked up that I asked you about, where there had to be televising
That was in September.
in September of properties. I myself, from the expansion up at Scand, lived in my house for 14 years, not a crack in the wall, nothing popped out of the sheetrock. And after they did that, it's everywhere in my house. So we may want to consider coming up with a radius around this for some televising or television or video camera or whatever it is that you want to call it of those properties to make sure that if there is blasting done, that there is not damage done to those properties.
I just want to go on the record with a statement, and that is from an engineering perspective, I think it is prudent. I'm not saying that cracking did not occur on your property after blasting. That is not a statement I would make about anybody's property in particular. What I would say is that energy dissipates through the Earth's crust as it radiates on a formula based on the underside of a sphere. If you think about a globe cut in half, as that energy radiates out, it dissipates exponentially as it gets further away from the project. So I've encountered at least 3 projects in my time in Sister Bay where we did televise, and the property owner swore up and down that there were no cracks present until blasting took place. These were all on DOT's project. We went back and reviewed the tapes, and guess what? All the cracks were there before the blasting took place. So I think filming is a great idea, simply because after the fact, we can go and roll the film and say, by the way, no, the cracks did not occur as a result of the blasting. Here they were.
The DOT routinely does that, they call it a crack and damage survey. So
Yep.
they assess your property before
Yep.
any blasting's done, and then they assess it after.
It cleans up a lot of headache after the
Yes,
fact.
you really don't assess it, you just document the
Yep.
filming and
Right.
photographing.
Right. Is that something that,
I don't think we had to do it at Niagara Ridge, but if it's,
What happened is we had some things to occur in the meantime.
okay.
Since you did Niagara Ridge, I would say that ultimately, I don't know what blaster you're going to use, it's going to be Paschke or somebody else, but number one, making sure notification takes place according to state and local standards. We've had some issue with that in the past, Tim. And number two, ensuring that any property within, I would really say something like 500 feet, you would televise those of the property boundary there. So that would be, you'd probably televise.
I don't even think it incorporates that many people's homes.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, depending on where, or, let me go back. I would go from where the blasting site actually is.
What if we just work with staff, and then if we have to blast, you guys establish or we'll work with you to establish a radius?
Oh, we can establish that right now.
Denise likes doing that.
And then we
That way
can-
we
can
just
do
all
the-
know up front. Everybody's aware of it.
It's on the record.
It's on the record.
I would say pick 500 feet from the site of the actual blasting that takes place. And you may have 6 structures, looking at the map right here, that might
Yeah.
need to be televised on that.
Okay.
I would suggest something different. What does state law require for notification for distance?
Like 300 feet.
Okay. I would take a look maybe at the Shopko area and the mobile area over there. It's all part of that bedrock ridge that runs through there.
Okay,
I mean, I had damage when they blasted in the quarry,
okay. Well, yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So if you're doing property right next to it, I'd be very concerned if I was excluded.
Okay.
So how would you like us to word that, Dave?
Hold on, let me pull something up. Let me get you a measurement. You're covered in that, Dave. That's 350 feet from the property boundary. So if you did instead of going from the blast site, if you did 300 feet from the property, 350 feet from the property boundary, that would encompass you and 1, 2, 3, maybe 11, 12 structures.
Okay. 350 feet from the property boundary.
You're saying from the building?
I'm looking at, I was actually just looking at both parcels, and I'm talking about from the boundary of the property. So, you know, Dave, if you want to make sure your property is covered, and we're talking about the singular parcel that they are acting upon, that would be 560. If we go from corner.
Well, you just said 350, which is it?
I'm looking at, if you guys can see the red lines I did. When I'm talking about the site, in my mind, I'm thinking about the site, which is both parcels, but just for clarification purposes, we may want to say the parcel singular, and that's 560 feet compared to the station.
2 days.
So that's
Or can we
600?
just say each surrounding parcel? Every parcel that surrounds this one?
That won't cover Dave's, that won't cover,
What, is there something in between?
yeah,
Yeah.
there's Shopko's in
Shopko.
between, and then there's 10569, it wouldn't cover them, it wouldn't cover 10564. I would do it based on a foot radius. It wouldn't cover Steve Mazinski's property, well, yeah, I guess it would, he touches on the bottom.
So is this a precedent that's gonna be ongoing for all development in Sister Bay then?
Yes.
They did this for Scanned. When Scanned did its project, they looked at it on a site-specific basis and compelled them to do the same thing. So you actually be the second party involved in that.
So your 350, is it from the parcel?
Well, I think the 350 now is changing.
Yeah.
Is it
560 from the parcel site you're working on.
Okay, so if we don't, if everything's on that eastern, because there's two parcels.
Yeah.
On the eastern one, it's 560 from the,
Only parcel 1, which is the parcel that you're operating on.
okay.
So forget about the 2581, the old quarry site itself. Don't worry about that until such a time as you're going to develop something there.
Okay.
Right, but the treed site where the apartment buildings are going, that'd be 560.
So then we'll just do 600 feet,
Round numbers.
right? Round number? Okay. Steve also brought up a fence. Isn't there, there's a tree perimeter. So
Yes.
would there really be a need for a fence? I am thinking not.
Our preference
think
would
so.
definitely, I'm sorry.
I just don't think a fence is gonna make any more difference myself.
Okay.
But that's just me. The kids are, if the kids decide to do something, they'll figure out a way.
fence will not.
No, the fence is good to tour them.
Can I ask a question about the tree line? So if the majority, there's brush and there's trees. And I understand in the part of, building, you want to get equipment around and this and that, all of a sudden most of that brush goes and what you're left with is a few natural trees that are taller, but now you have space in between the trunks of those trees. That could be 5 feet, it might be 40 feet. Is there other projects we've had natural boundaries where they're putting in cedars or something that eventually discourage walking between? I don't know if that's part of this or a natural.
This is a conditional use permit, so the village can exercise its authority to impose a lot of different conditions. What Joel said earlier is there's going to be basically a 40-foot buffer around this that they're not going to disturb. It costs them more money to disturb it. So the underbrush that you're talking about should largely remain intact. If they do disturb sites, maybe we want to consider some kind of cedar. The one area that's right here, that'd be the only site in my mind, Pat, that maybe you'd want to think about doing something. The rest of it, you've got quite a bit of depth with the existing trees, and it just costs them more money to touch it. The underbrush.
And I understand the top part, that part, then go down to the dead end.
You want it this way?
Yep. And then I would, even go further, if that stormwater, all of a sudden they say, okay, we're gonna tuck that into the corner, and they pull out all the trees within 5 feet, and now you have nothing left. I'm going to, right now, I see the rock pile he's talking about, and a wonderful 25-foot high lilac bush, and that lilac bush is a good 15, 20 feet wide. If they take that all out, I'm gonna fully view the backside of their building. I like the way they look, I'm excited about the project, but I really don't want to see it versus a beautiful lilac bush that I get. You know what I mean? So if
Okay,
they don't
how
pull all
about-
that out because it's a 5-foot buffer, I think they should have to replant natural plantings
Sure.
that.
How about if we
pre-existing-
stipulate that photos are taken of the current perimeter, and if after construction, there is removal of such greenery that it will be returned to its
Deleterious.
previous state?
Whatever, like it.
As close as possible.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm reasonable, I understand that.
Joel and Sarah,
I guess
you can make that happen?
we could, if the area is of concern where, for the most part, it's around that.
You just slide the building?
We could slide the building slightly, but I think it would be less ambiguous for all of us if you wanted to say now, do we want to put a row of evergreens in that gap by the road? That way you don't have to,
Joe,
we don't have to come back up and we don't have to have the conversation again. If it's the area that you're concerned about that we're opening up, it'd probably be easier if we'd know what the your expectations are, and we can accommodate it from the get-go versus trying to deal with it later. I think
Actually, the
it's
top
easier.
one probably won't impinge on my view. What I'm concerned about is that area that I'm guessing is stormwater down the corner of the triangle. My property is the other side of that, so I'd be looking in that view. So if all of a sudden, right now, that's a bunch of stuff.
Right down here?
Right, correct, right.
Yeah. Right now, we're calling for outside of that brushed area.
Okay.
And the stormwater features that we're most likely gonna go with is basically a sand filter.
Okay.
So, and you plant them with, there's a number of plants that DNR has on a checklist basically that can take inundation for short periods of time. They're, I'm not a plant guy, but like black-eyed Susans,
Yep.
That kind of, like a wildflower look to them. So you're not gonna be looking at a scummy green, algae-covered pond. It's gonna be one of these, if you do them right, they look like a landscape feature.
It's what we've got at the beach. It's that. Which I'm not saying that's great. I see the nod on your face, right?
I'm just saying, that's not a
You know,
compliment.
my view is more of a vista view. The building that I have there is probably 1,000 feet from there, so it's not like I'm right, or 500 maybe, I don't know. It's not right there. So I'm gonna see the building, I'm not gonna see the fine detail. So to take this huge lilac bush or the bigger trees, if they do come down, now I'm gonna see your building, whereas before, I wouldn't, at all. But I like the project up at the water tower. I have faith you're gonna do a good job. I'm just hoping I don't go and all of a sudden all the trees are gone. That'll be a grave disappointment. You'll hear about it.
I actually like taking photos now and then seeing what it looks like afterwards.
I would go that route, just from having worked in forestry as a much younger man. When you start talking about doing tree plantings already intermixed with a canopy, it becomes problematic to keep them alive. So you may need to end up and adjust and put some bushes there or something else.
Or maybe
instead.
nothing.
Or, yeah, make it site-specific. Do your best, right, would be kind of how I would come at it. And then if Pat complains, it's not going to be great.
Now, you did say that you could shift those two middle buildings
Slightly. I mean,
Slightly.
we're talking, something similar to the gentleman.
5 feet or something?
Yeah, our goal would be to shift it enough that we can most importantly, get the water passed.
Okay.
So we aren't blocking that up. That'd be my primary concern.
So shift about 5 feet to the northwest, you had said, right? Okay. All right.
Shift the asphalt. That's our our goal is to get that asphalt out of that 10-foot.
Shift the asphalt, not the building.
Could be either.
It might be either or.
Oh, okay.
We'll move it out of the 10-foot. How about that?
Okay. Before I close the public hearing, is there anything else anybody would like to say? Yes, Steve?
I would just like to add that the stone berm that we've been talking about, and where I had mentioned about possible fence, when we first bought the property, it was actually a fence there. There's a couple strands of barbed wire in places, other places it was like 6-inch square, I think it's called woven wire or something. And there were a whole bunch of appliances, broken drywall, old doors in there. We hauled all that stuff out, and we couldn't get it out without taking down parts of the fence. Some parts are still there, but that's where that fence went. So at one time, there was a fence there. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you. All right, at 3:08, we'll close the public hearing. So what I have heard is that if we approve the conditional use permit, the conditions that we would place on it is that the fire chief would have to sign off on access, that televising of properties within a 600-foot radius of the property boundary that photos will be taken of the perimeter, and if anything is destroyed in the construction, that it would be brought back to its previous state, and possibly the two middle buildings and the asphalt will be shifted about approximately 5 feet to the northwest.
With utility plans to be reviewed by village staff and village engineers for subsequent approval, and stormwater management plans to be reviewed by village staff, engineers, and subsequent approval.
Increased density.
Oh, well, that happens as a function of the vote, but yeah, you ought to get that on the record.
Well, I believe that needs to be the first vote, which would be the, if we want to allow them to increase the density on that property. They, at 7.05 acres, at 6 units per acre, that's 42. So we would be allowing them to put on 6 more, which would need a 3/4 vote. So I think that should be the first motion. Or conversation about it.
He made a motion.
Okay, motion by Howard,
Second.
second by Bell. Discussion?
Okay, so what's your motion?
Allow the increased density as presented.
I'll be forced to abstain. The only reason I'm not in the audience is for lack of a place to go, so.
Okay, but then what did you say, Zeke, about subject to what?
No, that's the other motion.
That's
The second motion.
All right, that the Sun Commission agrees to allow pre-3 to have increased density on the quarry property site as presented.
Correct.
Okay.
From 42 to 48.
Okay. From 42 to 48 units?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. And then when you get done writing that other one, do you want to read it back?
Sure. Okay, now Zeke, I need that wording that you said.
Drainage and utility plans to be approved at the staff level with the village engineers and utility staff. And stormwater. Sorry.
This does not include the development agreement?
This does not include the development agreement.
Okay.
Okay. This is not real cleaned up, but that the plan commission recommends that the village board approve ordinance number 254, which grants a conditional use permit for apartment buildings to be constructed on parcel number 1810007312811A3. Which of those parcels is it? Is it A3 or A4?
Hold on.
You can keep.
A4.
A4?
Can you talk louder, Janelle?
Oh, sure. Okay, on parcel number 1810007312811A4, on the condition that the following conditions will be imposed. 1, the fire chief will have to sign off on access. 2, televising of properties within 600 feet of the property boundary line will be required if blasting is done. Photos must be taken of the existing shrubbery and any of that shrubbery, and if any of that shrubbery is destroyed, it shall be replaced.
Perimeter.
Okay.
How far wide?
Okay, photos will be taken of what? The existing shrubbery?
The perimeter,
Existing vegetation.
on the perimeter.
Okay. Existing vegetation on the perimeter of the property? Okay. and if any of it is destroyed, it shall be replaced with light vegetation. It is possible that the middle two buildings and asphalt will be shifted 5 feet to the northwest. And that's about it, right?
Do they have to photo all the way around the whole property?
The entire perimeter.
Now, do you want to say it is possible, or do you want to say that the middle two buildings and asphalt shall be?
Shall.
And so then I'll amend that ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, oh, and then also you have drainage and utility plans must be approved by the village engineers as well as staff members. So are those your conditions?
Did you have sewer and water and stormwater in there?
That's utilities.
That's, okay, okay, just making sure. Okay. All right.
So who wants to make that motion and second it?
I so move.
Motion by Gretzmacher,
I'll second.
second by Baker. Any further discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Carried.
Thank you.
Hope that wasn't too painful.
Can we go?
So now we go to number 4.
We go to item 9.
Why?
Because I know there are people sitting in the audience related to item 9.
I believe there's people here for everything.
Might be.
Is Mr. O'Malley here? Okay. Item 4, discussion regarding a request from Richard O'Malley for a second driveway at 2235 Maple Drive. Consider a motion. We were a bit confused at our last meeting, Mr. O'Malley, and hence that's why you were asked to be here today. I guess we just didn't understand why you would request a second driveway on a parcel of property, but that driveway is going to access another parcel. So, would you like to enlighten us?
Sure, I apologize for not being here. I was at the previous 2 meetings. I had sick kids last time, so thank you for the second opportunity. The parcel that I purchased was from the Wiltsey family. It was since sold to a new neighbor, but ultimately, when I bought the property, we had an agreement that I would put a driveway in, that the other, the parcel at 2217 could use to access the house. Because if you don't do that, the driveway that's there now is smack dab in the middle of the lot, so you can't build anything on it. We're working with the neighbor, we buried the power, we moved the cable, and this is not it's not a second driveway.
It's not what?
It's not a second driveway. It'll become the primary driveway for 2217. Part of the agreement in the sale was that I would build the driveway that they could access, and then cover or whatever I need to do with the existing driveway. And then when I come to you at some point down the road for building an additional property there, a house there, I hope so anyway at some point. At that point, maybe you'll allow us to share the driveway, or you'll want a new one there. But ultimately, this is just a step in the process, so that I can put a home on a lot.
You didn't make this a condition of your purchase?
Pardon me?
You didn't make this a condition of your purchase?
A condition of the purchase of the vacant land?
Correct.
We did. There's an easement agreement. There's a condition to move the driveway. It's all recorded in Sturgeon Bay at the county.
I guess that makes me even more confused.
So it is not your intention, if we give you permission for this driveway, on this particular lot to access another lot, why would you not just put the driveway on the lot that needs the access?
It's a good question. That was the condition of the sale. They were selling a lot, which was, approximately a half acre in size, right? A little bit more for code, for a residential house. And it had a driveway right in the middle of it. And I approached them and said, I'm happy to buy it from you, but I'll have to approve the driveway, or otherwise I can't build a home. It's right in the middle of the lot. And they said, no problem. So we put together an easement agreement, and stated that we would have the driveway be on a certain side of the lot, and I would build it for them. And of course, it's all within code. I don't want two driveways. Once the new driveway goes in, the old driveway will be covered and not used.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from the Plan Commission?
What's the address of that adjoining property again?
So, 2217 is the adjacent property.
Okay.
I was assigned 2225 by the county recently.
25 or 35?
25, 2225, Maple, and then 2235 is the other name.
Okay.
So your property address is 2225?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, and you're gonna construct the property on, the driveway on 4/22/17,
17.
okay.
Is there a motion to approve Mr. O'Malley's request?
I'm still
I'm
confused.
just, yeah, I just don't understand, if it was approved, certainly you'd have to have a sunset clause on getting that other driveway out. I guess I just don't understand why this wasn't brought before the planning commission. It seems, again, this is an after-the-fact thing that we're being asked to clean up.
There are two, the Plan Commission can allow two driveways on a parcel. We can do that. He is telling us why he wants to do this and that he is going to vacate the other one. Even if Mr. O'Malley does not vacate the other one,
Still permissible.
it's still permissible with our approval.
Under what, just with blanket approval?
Well, it just calls for all second driveway permits to come up with the plan commission for approval.
I couldn't find much on this in my
It might have
package
been in the
again,
land
so.
division code instead of the zoning, which would have been chapter 54.
We've had one in the last year.
Yeah.
We did.
Shouldn't the driveway permit be for 2217 then? To make it a little bit clearer, because right now it says between
Yeah.
2235 and 2217. I mean, ultimately, isn't it for 2217?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
Can make it a little
But it's on
clearer.
the 2225 property.
It is, yes, correct.
So
It's an easement.
Yeah, it's really not dissimilar to the situation between Mr. Don Howard and Mr. Pat Duffy for those properties, right? You basically have a driveway easement to get back there to the farm, right? It's just in a residential neighborhood. There's also some topography issues there. There's quite a slope from memory.
So then it should say 2225 then, if it's actually.
Because that is the property that it's on.
It's on.
Yes.
Weird.
Do you have that written, Janelle? Would you like to read that?
Sure. That the Plan Commission grants Richard O'Malley's request to have a driveway on the property located at 2225 Maple Drive as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Bell.
Second.
Second by Howard. Any further conversation? All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. O'Malley.
Thank you.
Item 5, preliminary review of plans for a boutique hotel to be constructed on the Sister Bay Marketplace property, which were submitted by Jocko Management. Chris or Zeke, do you want to?
Yeah, so
Start?
give me just a second to pull up presentation here, but ultimately, there's been a lot of dialogue between Chris and myself regarding the marketplace property. Should be noted, just as a matter of the public record, the village board has taken action to authorize the sale of the marketplace property, to balance the marketplace property to Haco Management, who is also the developer of the Chop restaurant currently located on that site. So let me get this pulled. Again, today this is intended to be more of a dialogue about parking. Ultimately, the way we usually process this through is we say, hey, show us the architectural plans, show us the site plans, and we'll be off to the races. After having quite a bit of conversation with Mr. Schmeltz, it appears that's not a very logical progression for us to go through today, largely because the big question to be answered is how do we handle parking? Because one is going to drive the other. There are a number of ambiguities within our code that you all need to weigh in on to determine how parking credits are issued, what is the total amount of parking needed, and ultimately how do you foresee the site developing ahead. So the presentation kind of goes through some novel concepts of how to resolve some of those issues. Chris, I'll work the slideshow for you.
Oh, great. All right, yeah, you can go to advance.
Okay.
So, yeah, we wanted to take the first step to talk about some of the challenges on the lot and what we're proposing in terms of parking to get past this stage before we look into the building. Because obviously what we can put on the lot depends on what kind of parking we can have for what's there. So first off, we're looking at what's currently on the lot. And Zeke, have you been out and counted this, by the way? We just actually did as I drove up. We came up with 43. This was what we were given by Robert E. Lee of what's existing. So what we from the last iteration was that on the west side of the lot you have 12 spaces, and on the east side, all at 45-degree angles, you have 28 spaces. And so what we're proposing to do is to push, build parking on lot 12, and add in on lot 12 16 spaces on 12, and by increasing that driveway there.
Second, Chris, there's a question that came up.
Sure.
Marge, this is most of this is the village-owned lot.
Yeah, that I know.
This is lot 12 where the hotel is.
Okay.
So right now, this apron does not exist. So they would effectively reconfigure the existing parking lot with this to create more parking altogether.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what we're proposing to do is add 16 spots on lot 12, and then by changing it to 90-degree angles in the middle there, from what's existing, we can add another seven spots there. And at the south end of the lot, there is, we feel there's ability to add another 7 spots there to give us a total additional lots on the parking lot of 30 spots. So that, with the 30 spots, with I think also, part of our agreement was that we would be allotted, of what's there, 20 spots, as long as those, it would be for the retail as well as residential or the hotel spots, as long as it was above retail from the board meeting back in November.
Can you rephrase that, please?
Sure.
You were guaranteed 20
No, I
spots.
didn't say guaranteed.
Well, no, that was the deal the village board did, was to say there was a credit of 20 spots
For,
on the subsequent sale. That was written into the narrative document as a condition of the
okay,
sale.
that's what I'm asking. I was not at that meeting.
Okay.
No, actually, we spoke about it, right? We were in closed session. I think I asked directly, I said, the biggest challenge of the lot is the parking. I think we talked directly about, and I asked for an explanation of what the 20 spots, just clarifying that. I think I asked you directly.
So, just so I'm clear.
Sure.
There's approximately 42 current spots there.
I think 42 or 43.
Okay, 40-ish.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Chop has not been assigned any spots as of yet.
Correct.
Correct? And the village.
That is incorrect. So there's some shifting history on this based on your involvement or your not involvement. So where this started from a plan commission perspective was the plan commission approved this entire project site with all of the subsequent development that would come on it as if the parking were credited. That was under the exemption clause that we had in place, which subsequently expired, but all of this was approved. Now, we've had plenty of conversation after the fact and recognizing that we have a problem. Ultimately, what Chris is trying to do is to resolve that problem. So that conversation then evolved to say, well, maybe we want to take a look at parking for CHOP. Maybe we want to give a credit to CHOP as if the space inside of CHOP, the floor area, were retail. That was the last iteration of that conversation. And that we would look at CHOP's parking along with the Boathouse's parking, Al Johnson's parking, Wild Tomatoes parking, and all of the other individual restaurants in downtown Sister Bay as part of an overall rewrite of the parking code. That conversation has now evolved yet one more time based on the subsequent sale of this property to being a 20-space credit for development of the balance of the marketplace property. So ultimately, we continue to get tighter and tighter on our parking regulations, but that is not how this started as an initial conversation to foster development. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, I just think it's important to have the history.
Right, I'm just,
I think it's important to say that that was, at the time that Chris agreed to the purchase, that 20 credit was on the table and was,
I think
it was very clear.
Yes, that's valid.
okay. All right. So out of the 40-ish spots, there is, even though it was alluded to, there is nothing in the development agreement with CHOP, or the village has not specifically said, CHOP, this is your credit.
The village has said you will receive a credit based on the existing code as if there were one space assigned per 150 square foot of area for CHOP.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's right. Thanks for clarification, appreciate it. So what we're trying to do here is just to break down and just show what's, we're looking at the existing spots. So I actually think that's actually 31, not 28. We're talking about adding 30 spots, so I'm going on where that yellow shaded area is, calling that 30 spots. We're adding to the 12 that's there existing, you get a total of 42. So that would get the total parking available on the lot to 70 spots. And I guess while we're, Zeke, if you can go back to that first one, the first slide, sorry. It just shows you as is.
Right there.
Yeah, because again, thinking about, it wasn't just about how can we get enough parking on here. We want to think about, well, if we're going to put a building on here, what's the best placement of a building? So, the Vanderwall redevelopment plan showed a building, pushed to the front with parking in the back. I think that was adequate. Since then, there was a lot of meetings about what would be the best use of the property, and it was pushing that building back to allow for the open marketplace space on lots 14 and 13 there. So knowing that that's what was wanted, as well as retail, as well as thinking about when you come into Sister Bay, into the village, coming down the hill as you pass the bowl, what we did want to see is if you had a building that was, you were trying to put parking along the bowl's property line on the south, you'd come in, the first thing you'd see would be a parking lot. So we thought, what's the best configuration of a building we could get, thinking of that first, and then backing into that, say, all right, how are we going to deal with the parking issues that's here? We also looked at putting parking underneath the building, but again, the problem with that is going to be that in your first floor, you're going to look at some sort of either cars or something fairly ugly. What we want to do, and I think we've been told, feedback is that we wanted to have retail there, and so the first floor we're proposing with this design would be to have retail on the first floor. So adding to that, so the retail would be on the first floor, and then the second floor would you access that coming off the parking lot, so the basement would almost be like a walkout basement. So you're walking into the building from the parking lot, that's your second floor, and then go 2 floors above that to go to 3 floors of the hotel. And so there's a breakdown there, hard to read from here.
Yeah, so what it says is ground floor 6,400 gross retail square footage, second floor 10 standard 2 suites, third floor 10 standard 4 suites, fourth floor 10 standard 4 suites. That's room layouts.
And so that comes up to 40 spots. Well, Zeke, I apologize. It's like you have, I gave you an old version of this. Okay. So I apologize. Hotel parking, because it's only 40 spots, we were initially looking at the suites thinking it might be 1.5, but per the code, it's either a hotel room or a suite is one spot is allotted. So that number is off. That hotel parking should say 40. So now my math is going to be off, so I apologize.
So
So you're
you reduce it
96.
by 5, so
Yeah,
96.
Yep, and then we have, I think we took off some for, yeah, I think everything else is about the same. I think we took the retail employee, you know, we don't know what's gonna go in there, so we can't really say what the retail is gonna be, we're just making assumptions. Let's just say you had 10 there, for the employee hotel, we had 5 there. So if you go to the next slide, go ahead, please.
So because you have employee hotel listed on there, this is going to be a traditional hotel with a lobby?
That's what we're proposing, yes.
Okay, not a BBRO or anything, okay, great.
This is 4 stories high,
It's 45 feet high.
Yes.
and is it that entire area or just the part marked hotel?
Just the part marked hotel. The front part will be a mixed use, retail ground floor, residential up above, which is very, even though it's reconfigured on the lot a little bit, there's actually less total development than what we originally envisioned out on the street front. But it's being made up by having retail in the basement part of the hotel, yeah.
And I didn't talk about phase 2, so they were looking at this as a multi-phase project, phase 2 being the retail on Bayshore Drive, as well as behind shop retail there as well. And that's what we're calling phase 2.
Any anchors for phase 2 or the retail?
Not yet, no. So then, going back to the code says that we, in the B3 district, that we are allotted for each business per lot, we would be allotted 3 spots that we wouldn't need to build for that, which, because we're building across 1, 2, 3, 12, 14,
9.
and 13, as well as 9. So we come up with 27 extra spots that we would be exempt from.
Where did you find that in the code, Chris?
It's under B3 and as well as,
Because I found it under B2, which is the transition, but I did not see it in B3.
It's in the traffic section.
it's under item 7.
So 66.04,
Page?
page 86.
So it says under exemptions, says in the application of the off-street parking regulations, specified above results in requirements not more than 3 spaces on a single lot in the district, such parking spaces need not be provided.
I'd also call out that under 0404, it states, the R2, B1, B2, B3, P1, and I1 districts, the minimum number of required parking spaces may be adjusted by the Planning Commission on a case-by-case basis. The petitioner for such an adjustment shall show to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission that adequate parking will be provided for customers, clients, visitors, and employees. And then there are 3 different provision sections that kind of talk about that.
Well, yeah, I saw the adjustments on page 86, but it doesn't give a number.
See, I'm on page 83. This is,
Sub J, parking space required. Yep.
Yep, got
If a
it.
single development building or parcel contains multiple businesses, the 3 parking space credits shall only be provided once. All right, so it talks about the credit should be applicable to future businesses, additions to existing businesses. So that's some of the ambiguity.
so yeah, that's part of the exemptions we're looking for. Also, because we're not utilizing the curb cut coming off Bayshore Drive, so that would just, not to say that we're adding that, but that would be another space to be added back in. So with that, we're looking at 27 spots being exempt going, because again, we're building on phase 1 across 1, 2, 12, 13, and 14, phase 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9. With 27 spots there. And then we're saying, hey, with the employee hotel parking, we want to provide bike racks and bikes and have employees come from employee housing, not having to park on the lot, requiring them, requiring all employees to park off-site coming on, and really would like to see, other means of transportation to get there. So I did call that out. I sent Zeke a couple of versions, which was my fault. You never want to spend too many versions of something before you get it right. But so we did have something different on the other one. So here we're asking adjustments in the required retail parking, because part of that retail parking will be the hotel guests. So if you had a hotel guest there, we're saying, well, they're going to be using that retail, and we're asking for some adjustments there. Employee retail, we're saying, we're asking them to park off site. The hotel itself, we're not asking for any adjustments. That would be the 40 spots is required. And employee hotel, we're asking them to come on site, either walking or biking or parking off site. And then the same for retail phase 2 employee parking, as well as asking for adjustments there. So really, we feel we're adding 30 spots to the lot with the 20, so we're giving 50. We're allotted 50, and asking for exemptions to have that be the number, and that would leave some 23 spots left in the parking spot behind.
Okay.
So yeah, just looking for to take our next step. So if we're okay with that number, we'll go back and next month share some plans with you.
Unless you have any other thoughts.
The Plan Commission feel about the presentation? I would have liked to have had these numbers in my packet.
Yeah, me too.
I sent them.
I didn't get them.
Sorry.
That's okay. Not your fault.
I'll own that one.
No, I got it right, that when all is said and done, there'll be 70 spaces on that property, is that right?
73, I think.
73, okay.
We're adding 30.
Thoughts?
Parking is a problem.
Always
That seems
is.
to be an endless problem
Yes.
that we deal with all the time, yet at the same time, he's obviously trying hard to solve part of the problem. So,
The parking calculation is based on a 4-story building. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Well,
And we
yes.
haven't seen the 4-story building or even approved
Right, because the
building of that.
parking's going to dictate all of that. If we,
So we're gonna approve parking for a building that we haven't approved.
You
No.
would have to look at a subsequent building, but ultimately, if you say today, you know what, Chris, we disagree with your calculation of credits. We do not believe the village's code says what it is that you believe it to say. Chris will have to go back, realign his plan, examine the feasibility of a hotel with less rooms, determine if he could move forward with the project or not. Right now, he's in the middle of doing a feasibility study for the project. Even with this density of development, it's yet to be determined if this is a feasible development. So he's doing his due diligence to move forward with the process. Ultimately, you will get an opportunity to look at the building and show that the building conforms with the code. I've actually,
I was just nodding.
oh, okay, sorry, I caught some of my periphery there, and I was like, well. We've had some conversation. This is one of my big concerns, and I'm gonna encourage him to do this. I brought, not that we have time, we're not gonna have time, but I bought myself a VR set of goggles, because I continue.
We've got 25 items on this agenda.
I
Just
understand.
let- So let,
Where Don's going is, we're gonna approve
Okay,
this four-story building.
No.
right?
so we
I
have
don't know
gone,
what we're gonna approve, I haven't seen it.
Right. But
We're talking
we have
about
to-
parking for a building, for a facility that we have not yet approved.
We have to agree with his numbers,
Right.
Yes.
that
and
this
that-
parking
and we
will
can say
be
that this would be
adequate.
This would be appropriate parking,
Right.
given the fact, assuming that the building will be approved.
Right.
And if the building doesn't end up as large as it was planned, then you will need less parking.
Correct.
I think he's doing everything he can on this parcel. reasonably.
Yeah, it sounds good, I'm just.
I think that we
agree.
could ask for just a little bit more with looking across the street, knowing that we may have the opportunity to get some additional parking. If we can work that out with Pat Quinn's development, to get that's parking right in the place we need it. So maybe if we could get a modest contribution towards parking in the village to alleviate the parking issue, that would take it off of Chris's plate. He would have if he have it resolved, and we'd be able to deal with the problem later on. As it became available, we don't have to encumber him with the other development across the street.
So do you want to come up with a fixed dollar amount? You want Chris to run on his feasibility calculations that he'll be responsible for? Ultimately, the village needs to be responsible for acquiring the piece of land in front of Pickles in terms of right-of-way, the piece of land in front of Pat Quinn's from a right-of-way perspective, and managing that project somehow. So
I'm saying we should not even make that part of, just to have it be a fixed dollar amount.
that's what I'm saying.
And then
Yeah.
it's done. That way
Yep.
you don't have to worry about
He can run a
27
feasibility
things going
study.
on, right.
Yeah, yeah.
And then worst case, we've got some money, a little bit of money to deal with a parking issue.
This whole parcel has just been so convoluted since the beginning. I was not in on it from the beginning.
Doesn't matter, it changes every 2 weeks, so.
And it's here.
I understand, and I like your project. I'm happy that there might be a hotel downtown. I think it's something that the board and the plan commission have wanted for a very long time. That site is restrictive with its parking and what you can do with it because of the topography. I understand that when the village bought it and then subsequent deals were made or promises made about parking. And so the public is not happy about the parking. Some people say there is not a parking problem. Others say there is. It all just depends on your perspective. We need, if we go along with your numbers, we need to be able to say to the public, and this is always my concern, how do I justify my decision on allowing something and giving exceptions to the rule or adjustments in the code? It has to be based on something that we have thought long and hard about and can justify to the people that, all the people that we serve. I like it, though. And here's the monkey wrench. And not saying that we can't override this. When you showed me that on page 83, starting on line 17, it says in the B1, B2, and B3 districts, the number of parking spaces required by this section shall be reduced by a credit of 3 spaces. In granting that credit, the Plan Commission will take into account all of the proposed required parking for all of the businesses or uses on the parcels or buildings. That compromise the development. If a single development, building, or parcel contains multiple businesses, the 3 parking space credit shall only be provided once. I don't think that applies. I mean, your 27 exemptions, I don't think applies because we can only allow it once. But because the village bought the property, they are interested in selling it, we want development on it, then I think we have to bite the bullet for the best plan to develop it. And let the parking fall where it may. It has been convoluted for a very long time. It's not going to get any better.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Exactly.
I'm sorry I babbled.
No, you
So
didn't.
are you rolling with the 27 space credit, or you're not rolling with the 27 space credit?
You have to remember that we just approved something for them, which was employee housing, which he is using to offset this additionally.
Sure.
Now, this is no different than what Ecology Sports and Base Camp went through when they had to buy a residential lot, not the highest and best use, and turn it into a parking lot. I feel that they've already made strides in the direction to provide some justification to this.
So that would be the other code section exemption that 0404 that Mary Kay is talking about, where you have parking within a relative distance and alternative transportation methods to the automobile.
I think for myself. I just need to resign myself that that is not a public parking lot. It is a parking lot for that property, and get over it and move on.
Not at this time of the year. If you want to go park over there right now, any member of the public, you can.
But if he gets his hotel, maybe we won't be able to.
And would that be a bad thing?
No, it
Especially
would
if
be
he's
a
bringing
wonderful
retail
thing.
into the
Yes.
lobby, more
Yes.
places to shop. Our
We
our
need-
mantra has been retail, retail, retail. He's offering to bring that in
Right.
phase two
Right.
And phase one.
and phase one.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the numbers, because I don't have them on a piece of paper in front of me, which, like I said, I would have liked to have had, I would like to move forward, but I don't know that I can.
Can you be comfortable moving forward, assuming that the math is correct? Right?
Give or take.
Right, like we
Yeah.
presume that the math is correct, that the calculations have been done correctly. And as long as the math is correct, the plan commission is willing to say, yep, we bless this, go forward with the plan production.
Okay, great.
They need to say that.
What's that?
I said, they need to say that, I don't need to say that.
Does that work for you?
I still think we should look for something for that, the parking we're gonna add across the way, because it's going to be for this development.
Throw a number out, Nate.
How many?
$500 for each short, each spot you're short,
Done.
one time.
You don't get to say time.
Zeke's talking for me, that's okay.
So you think that that needs to be thrown into it, where does that money go? What does it do, Nate?
So if we get the opportunity, which we hope to have, to bring more parking to that downtown area, hopefully across the street, we would use that money to pay for such improvements.
I would think the developer of those properties, if we approve those projects as presented, that they would pay for it and it would not be village funds.
Talk about PIP bills.
Huh?
So PIP, to really get the angle parking out of Pat Quinn's project that you're gonna need to actually have an increase in parking there, there's gonna be some.
Okay, we're gonna
Okay.
So
get
there's
sidetracked.
another one aside from the development, the
Okay.
existing one,
PIP is
that would
piece.
expand out of
Okay.
there that I think
It
would be
was
hard
stated verbally
to.
that village funds would be used to help Pipka if she would agree to help the
Yeah.
other project. So this is a great solution, in my opinion.
So $500 per space,
That's short from code, short versus
Well,
code
short
calculation.
from code.
I'm gonna throw up an alternative, which is $500 per space that we can create in that space. Right, I don't know how many we can get there, but if there's 8 spaces or 10 spaces or whatever that is, and he's contributed it that way, then
This is the fee in lieu of parking.
I understand. What we're saying is, here's a credit, right, and here's what
Let's
that,
make it what it is, so we're not, you're pushing that calculation down the road. Let's have it be upfront, you know, at the time that Chris is completing this, not when we get that parking in there.
Right, and I say it goes into a parking fund not specified for anything
Yeah.
at this point in time.
Fair enough.
I don't care where it goes, somewhere.
And I'll make that motion to, as you got written up to now.
As only Janelle can do.
Okay, the plan commission accepts, is it Jaco or Jocko?
Hako.
Jocko, okay.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry, I said it wrong all this time.
Butchered that.
That's the fun of it.
Hako Management's parking proposal for the Sister Bay Marketplace property on the condition that a fee in lieu of parking of $500 for each deficient spot on the property shall be imposed.
Do we need to incorporate,
into a parking fund.
no, if the math is correct.
Oh.
But
yeah.
that's why I've got it saying,
Deficient.
we're gonna, it's the deficient number, we're presuming it's gonna be about 27, but if the math is wrong, it's still gonna be $500 per spot.
Yeah.
He's covering it.
Yeah, that
Okay.
works.
Okay, I understand, thanks, Nate.
And then also the exemption credits for 3 spots per lot with retail on it also.
You want that in the motion?
Yes.
Okay, further what? A credit of what? Parking credit.
Of 3 spaces per,
Retail establishment created.
wants to second that?
Well, can you read it
Yeah,
again?
read it one more time. and-
Okay, that the plan commission accepts Haco Management's parking proposal for the Sister May Marketplace property on the condition that a fee in lieu of parking of $500 for each deficient spot on that property shall be imposed. Further, a parking credit per retail establishment created shall be granted. Okay,
Can we say one-time fee, just to be clear?
okay. That,
Unless Chris wants to pay that every year.
Thanks.
Okay, so it'll be one-time fee in lieu of parking of $500 for each deficient spot.
And did you have the number of credits in there?
Further, a parking credit per retail establishment created shall be granted. 3 spaces,
Three
is it?
spaces, I
Three
think.
space
How many
parking credit.
retail spaces do we have here?
Per retail establishment or per lot, Zeke?
For a lot.
For retail establishment.
With them, yeah.
If you think about how that's gonna cut up on the bottom, right? Ultimately, as you drive the development process, you may end up consolidating them, in which case it will reduce the credit, you may end up expanding them, or you may have just white boxes that are cut between with walkthroughs, right? So it's, I don't know what that looks like.
Right, okay.
One question for you, Nate. With adding the one time, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but as we redefine the parking code, there may be annual payments that are implemented. Would that override this one time?
You have to write it.
Or is he grandfathered, basically?
Do you want a perpetual cash flow, or do you want a one-time shot me on?
But I'm saying the dollar amounts
That's
may
a
be
good point.
very, very different. So I agree that the $500 should be a one-time, but for example, there has been conversation of $100 per space per year.
You can't double ding him,
Yeah.
so you can roll one direction or the other.
I think if we charge them this right now, because we don't have that existing, we
Okay.
wouldn't.
Then he would be exempt.
That's gonna create some issues
Yes, it
with
is.
everybody else. So that's why I'm saying, you either need to go one way or the other. You can't have Chris with an exemption because the village was involved in this project and everybody else is pony up every year. So you can write it in the agreement that whatever is determined on behalf of the entirety of the village, the minimum that he will pay is $500 per space is a one-time transition. However, at such a time that the village decides to enact an ongoing bid district or other mechanism by which parking would be assessed, then his 500 payment would either be credited back to him and he would pay on an ongoing basis, or maybe you haven't even collected at that point.
I think you're right, Zeke, we can't predict what this body's gonna do in the
Right.
future. We
Yeah.
can't encumber ourselves on that.
I mean, you're trying to craft this master plan.
So
for
that would
parking.
come in the development agreement. So then, maybe that's not part of the motion then at all.
Maybe that's just letting Chris know that, so when he runs his calculation, that's.
Why don't you just leave it subject to future ordinances, just like it is in every other development agreement that we have?
Yeah.
I know, but we're not talking about a development agreement. We're
just
talking
talking about
about
a
him
motion.
moving forward, so that doesn't have to be part of this motion if it is incorporated into the development agreement when we get to that point. And you just know about it, in the back of your head as we move forward. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, no, I think so. So a one-time fee for, so then now it just comes down to that math of how many spaces are we talking? So there's I think I'm asking for an exemption because we're having off-site parking allowed for employees. So it's backing into what that number really is, because I think what we're looking at is we're gonna create enough spots. Then I would say too, if we have the ability to create more spots in the lot by pushing towards the library, dealing with, maybe widening that lane so we can go 90 degrees there, would that be acceptable as well? We didn't bring that up because I'm not sure, but, exploring other options
Right.
to make up for that
Sure.
efficiency, as soon as we come to a number that we're agreeing upon, yeah, absolutely. So it's, I think I had 91 here, and then with the credits of 27, or with the, let's see, I think we needed, 41 credit, 27 left, was like 14 spots roughly that we would need some help with, and maybe if we created another 7, that would leave us only 7 left. So yeah, so just as long as you're allowing us to say, hey, you can rearrange the parking configurations within code to add more spots with what's there, and then like you said, we'll agree to that math and come up to a number, yeah, that's acceptable.
So what does that motion look like now, Janelle?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I don't know how you want that to read.
We don't either.
On the condition that a one-time fee in lieu of parking.
No, none of that.
That comes up. On the condition.
Or maybe it's just, it's a motion that, that if the math is correct on the parking, the plan commission, Chris moves forward in the next step in the development process?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, effectively, you're saying, here's how many spaces we believe that you have or that you'll be credited based on the presentation tonight. He goes and does his design out. Based on the final design, we'll verify those numbers against the total capacity design. Sorry, I have hiccups.
Yeah, so just a matter of, sitting down and just confirming, probably we don't want to do it now, but just confirming that number together at some point.
Yeah.
So
Okay, yeah.
what's the motion now say?
Okay.
Or is it even a motion anymore?
Yes.
I think
It
Chris
has to be.
needs something
Yes,
that's tangible.
to continue, sure.
Okay. All right. That the plan commission accepts Hopco Management's parking proposal for the Sister Bay Marketplace property on the condition that if the math is correct, a 3-space parking credit per retail establishment shall be granted. Hopco Management shall be allowed to move forward with the next step of the development process. And then take the 500 parking out of
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Okay.
we'll deal with that at the. Somebody care to make that motion?
I'm gonna throw out, you need to put that in there.
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Motion by Bell, second by Gretzmacher.
Wait, because, we had the $500 fee in lieu of parking spaces that was out there, and now that's gone?
No.
Just to make sure I'm clear.
It's not gone.
It's not gone, it's just
Okay.
not in this motion.
Got it, sorry. Thanks.
So as we move forward, we will figure it out and
Okay.
determine whether or not, depending upon how the new parking code shakes out, what will apply to
Okay.
everyone.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you
Okay,
good?
so can I read this once more? Okay, that the plan commission accepts Hopco Management's parking proposal for the Sister Bay Marketplace property on the condition that if the math is correct and the required
Sorry.
parking is provided, a 3-space parking credit per retail establishment shall be granted. Hopco Management will be allowed to move forward with the next step of the development process.
Yep.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Any further conversation? All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Turn the lights back up.
Yes, sir.
What are we on now? Says she curiously.
That's good.
Okay, item number, where are we?
Yeah,
6?
this is this.
Preliminary
This
review of
one.
plans for an inn to be constructed on Mill Road. The address is incorrect on the agenda. So I don't,
Okay.
The
So-
address should be 2322.
2322.
Is this for Gustavo?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mill Road. This is the corner of South Spring.
So,
Okay, Zeke?
this particular project is a proposal from Gustavo Gallardo, sorry if I'm not saying that right. I think I got it close anyway. Done by Verge Timmy, so they're all back there in the audience. This is located where Pipka's studio is presently located. I'm gonna try to rotate, oh, there it is. Nice. I gotta turn the light back off so you can see it. This is that. rough architectural facade. I'm gonna kind of run through those. Verge, if you want to narrate anything, you go right ahead. So ultimately, what they're looking for today is preliminary approval. You should give them some feedback on the architecture in particular. This is a white box design, so there would be more detail presented at a subsequent meeting.
Exactly.
But so ultimately, what you're getting here are the lines and the angles. I think this view in particular kind of gives you a good idea of what's going on with the property located there, along with the site plan. You can see here it is from an interior architectural view. And then there's the site plan layout. So the existing studio space will be rehabbed into a coffee shop. It will be added on to create a manager's office and 5 transient lodging units as part of phase 1. Part of phase 2 will be a provision of a 4-unit additional building. I do have a question for you, Verge.
Yes.
On the parking you got denoted here, are we operating on a neighbor plan to knock on my neighbor's car and say, hey, can I back out? Or are we assuming that 2 people are gonna go end to end? I just didn't quite understand, what that.
Oh, yes, at the very ends, you see, those
Yes,
are
ma'am.
turnarounds, so as you pull out, you can pull directly onto the road. So the cars,
So I guess when I'm looking at it, this is what I understand.
there are actually 2 entries.
Okay. So it just looks to me like, all right, I'm coming in here, and then car number 1 parks here, car number 2
No,
parks
no,
here.
no.
Okay. So it's
I don't know why this is cut off, but there's
Okay.
actually a
Is it
driveway
another
coming
drive
in here.
coming? All right.
Yeah. But it would save some pavement.
Sure. I was kind of creative. We're
Yeah,
on
well,
the,
thank you.
on the neighbor plan.
Yeah, so we calculated this with 9 units, and then 3 full-time employees at the most. And then the coffee shop is actually about 100 square feet. So altogether, that works out to 13 parking spaces. Right now at Pipka's, there's approximately 5 parking spaces right up by the road, but we want to be able to have some room for the 4-unit a little later, but still have plenty of space there at the corner, so we can have gardens out front and make it more attractive from the road, give a little bit more privacy to the buildings themselves. So they're really kind of almost a public garden there at the corner of Mill and Spring, and then more private gardens, lawn areas for play toward the back. Right now, all along Spring Road are all those huge arborvitae. Those, for the most part, are going to stay in place. We're going to keep as much, in fact, we're going to go out and stake the property if everything goes as we hope in this meeting. Go out and stake the property and take a survey of which trees we're going to save. We're going to save as many of the existing trees as we can. And then next round, we'll have a listing of all of those and all the new trees that we'll be planting in. But it's important for us to maintain the character of Sister Bay. So we're keeping a lot of the historic elements. We're keeping board and batten, the site of board and batten, clapboard combinations, perhaps some gingerbread, definitely keeping with the older, turn of the century styling. Fairly simple lines, nice integration of interior and exterior spaces, we think.
Are these VBRO units, or is it more of a traditional inn with somebody on site?
Yes, it's more of a traditional inn.
Okay.
Hence, then, the manager office.
Correct.
Okay.
And obviously, the next iteration will have the floor plan so you can see, how the rooms are being configured.
Verge, for what it's worth, I know this is a really challenging site to design around.
Yeah.
I know we've had quite a few phone calls. It's kind of a unique concept from my perspective. When we started this dialogue at this level to plan for what was going to go on in the community, I did not foresee what I'm going to call micro hospitality properties popping up in the downtown. And it's sort of just interesting that simultaneously we have two of those developments in front of us.
This was a challenging lot, and, you know, if you all know my work, you know, I try very stringently to make things as sustainable as possible, you know, and as environmentally compatible as possible. And so I worked with the grades as they exist right now, so we have minimal, if any, blasting on the site. As you may or may not be able to tell, the lower level of the multi-unit, the two-story on the right, actually follows the grade that exists on the property right now.
Well, we see more detailed renderings of the buildings, you know, siding, roof, you know, what's gonna look like, color,
Absolutely,
et cetera.
absolutely. At this point, though, you know, we wanted to keep the hours and the investment at a
Sure.
minimal until we got through this first phase, but definitely the next one, you're gonna see far more details, you're gonna see, you know, what the materials will be, what the vegetation will be, more details on the balconies, so you'll be able to get a really good idea of what the place is gonna look like. The color scheme of the buildings, they're gonna be all white, and then roof, windows, you know, all the additional details are gonna be gradients of gray.
Is the proposition for the coffee and the retail to not only be open to the public, but also potentially year-round?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, this whole complex is gonna be open year-round.
Good.
I like it.
I do too.
Well, and if we go forward, it is my hope that this ends up being one of the first commercial lead projects in Sister Bay. So, we'll see.
Excellent.
Nice.
One of the things that I'm thinking about for this, and frankly, this is probably a brand-new conversation with Gustavo, but I've been looking at the terrain and where the water runs off, and, you know, of course, we've got the wetlands back behind. So I'm going to be working with the engineers, the civic engineers, about doing some rainwater collection, preservation, some rain gardens back in that area. So we minimize the impact on the infrastructure. And one of the things that I'm also doing with these buildings is we're going to try to get as close to net zero energy as we can with these buildings. You know, so there's less of an impact on the power infrastructure on this as well. Everything will have low flow water fixtures, rainwater collection potentially, so we can maintain the water without, you know, without tapping into the city's water
Are you
system.
doing a gray water system?
Pardon me?
Are you doing a gray water system?
No, probably not at that.
Okay.
That's really high maintenance, it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
expensive.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
Great idea.
Looks good.
We look forward to seeing more, Verge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we can just say the plan.
You should have a motion in a second, preliminary approval.
I will make that motion for preliminary approval as presented.
Second?
Second by Baker.
Lots of enthusiasm there.
All those in favor respond with an eye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
We should skip item 8, go to item 9. Item 8's a board item.
We're at number 7.
We are at number 7.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, discussion regarding and review of revised plans which were submitted by Pat Quinn for an inn to be constructed at 2330 Mill Road, as well as review of a related development agreement. I've already informed Mr. Quinn that his development agreement will not be discussed nor approved tonight because it was a mess, so.
I made a mess, guys. I own the things I mess up on. There's a lot of stuff to try to cram into one meeting. I just did not do justice to it. And Pat, I apologize to you for that.
Not a problem.
Lights,
Oh, yes, ma'am. Let me get it.
please.
Over there, over right here.
Whoa.
To your left, that's my best side.
Dave, did we lose board members to Marina?
Yes.
In the other room.
They're in there.
What?
They're in the other room.
you.
I know, but it's just, this is the one that was a little different in its proposal. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Some of this,
Thank you.
I don't think I need a mic, but if I do, I will. You want to be heard on camera,
There's a mistake on the address for this one too, it should be 2330.
That's what I did say.
Oh,
2330? Okay, so it's correct on this then.
Yeah, it's correct on mine, but it wasn't correct on the agenda. Or maybe you got it?
This agenda, 2330,
Okay,
that's you.
okay, that's good. Okay. Before we get too far into your pamphlet, and that's a teacher's rule that we should probably not pass out all the papers at once, but I did. So let's start the project checklist. We've gone through everything. Everything is accounted for. The architectural plan, the site plan, the landscape plan, parking plan, lighting plan, drainage shown, building plan, and the water fixture and drain listings have been sent to Mike. So, what we did after the last meeting, before we get into parking, and parking is probably what you're looking at already on the site plan, but let's, if we can just delay that for a second. If you remember at the end of the meeting, we did have a bunch of options happening. And one was possibly doing patios off to the side or in the rear with reconfiguring the building, because as you remember, we eliminated the parking from in front, a big blacktop area, and put it at an angled parking off into the street. Consequently, the building did get 4 feet wider, 2 feet on each end, to accommodate the change-up, to allow for the patios. One of the things that was brought forth was to make it prettier. It's kind of like your high school pictures. You think you're prettier than what the camera comes up with. Well, I'm sorry, but I think this one will look prettier as it is built. This is a one-dimensional flat colored picture of it, as opposed to a two-dimensional that were shown to you earlier, or three-dimensional that was shown earlier. So, what this primarily does is show you that we do have a very traditional-looking two-story, straight lines. We were asked, as I said, to make it prettier. What we did do was add wider trim. We added stone around both of the entrances. We did different texture and structure up in the peaks, both on the front as well as on the sides. Along with the wider trim, we will also be doing the upper patios in white, not the brown color that's shown here. From your sheets, front elevations, Zeke made the point, let's improve it with more windows, which we did, as well as I mentioned, the 2 patios in addition to the single patio that we already had. There are 4 2-bedroom units, 1 3-bedroom unit. We are pleased with that design. I think it meets a multiple area of marketing. We've included the light plan as well that you went through last week. Before we get to parking, the landscape design, abundant deciduous and non-deciduous items. I like grasses. We've got blue oak grass, Forester reed grasses, hydrangeas, carabellas. But one thing I want to correct on your landscape plan. If you see the row of arborvitaes in the front, that was when we were still contemplating having the parking lot in front, and we wanted to buffer it, and consequently that was changed. So then consequently, that line of arborvitaes will change more towards the the deciduous and non-deciduous that we have in the front part of the building. Also, there would be 2 sidewalks leading up to the porches, as opposed to 1 single sidewalk. I think that makes more sense. Okay, should we get on to the parking at this point?
About 2 sidewalks here?
Correct.
Straight
Yes.
out.
Straight out, right.
I like the other one better.
Do you?
I do.
Whatever
It's
makes
softer.
Denise happy.
Don't say that, Mr. Quinn.
I don't
Just
have,
my perspective.
if there's a strong feeling either way, I don't have one. I thought that we might just be able to disperse it a little bit more with doing 2 sidewalks. It's a horse apiece.
I have a comment on your landscaping.
Sure.
Are you gonna take this row of vegetation out, which is right in front of where people will be parking? That means that anybody pulling into the parking area could be shining their lights right into the windows of your building.
Good point.
You
Some
need
of the-
some kind of vegetation there that's up, at least up as high as the car.
Exactly. Some will be there. It's just shown here as a solid barrier that I didn't think was
Well,
very
you said you're
attractive.
taking that out, but I think you should leave it in. Maybe modify what it is, but if I had this place, I wouldn't want every time somebody pulled a car in to have it shine in my living room window.
Don, I think it's a valid point, but in a downtown, and I'm just saying this because I just moved into an area where you have that, and ultimately the lights shine right in with a good set of blinds, you don't see it unless I've got the window open. That's my new place and exactly how it is, what you're talking about.
Well, if you plant a hedge there, then you don't have a problem.
That's a good point.
We'll have some there. It'll be a mix.
Thank
It'll be a mix. That's a good point. Should we go on to the site plan for parking?
Okay.
Well, I guess I'd like to hear from the Plan Commission if they like this drawing as the 2 straight-in sidewalks.
I like the sidewalk on this,
On the
this drawing.
landscaping plan?
I think the
On the
single's-
landscaping.
Single?
I like the single better too.
Yeah, I do too.
I just think it looks nicer, more inviting.
It does. It can be
Okay.
landscaped better, differently.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe put the little bricks on the side of the sidewalk to add a little flavor to it and, okay, that's fine with me.
I realize that you did put stone around the doors and you did tweak some of the other details, and you did say that the decking will be white.
Correct.
But there is not the addition of dental work.
The reason that we're still struggling with dental for 2 reasons. Well, one is my problem, and she's not here tonight. Don't go there. Secondly, the 3 corners of dental are a perfect hideaway for spiders and wasps. And I'm dealing with that in some of the corners of my property in Fish Creek. We have it sprayed twice a year, and we still have problems with it. I'm reluctant to put dental into it. I have put a major freeze board all the way across. It does separate the shingle type look that reaches to the peaks both on the side and front, as well as the wider window trim. But
And I
it's-
appreciate that, but as presented, there's nothing that lends itself to turn of the century. Nothing.
Nor is there across the street, but
I was not on the Plan Commission when that building was
Okay.
built.
And we've tried to integrate our interior with our exterior facade. I like the clean lines that we've shown here. And again, any of the one-dimensional photos don't really convey what it's going to look like in real life. But
Could it be as simple as with the white decks, putting some shutters in here, just to, if you're going for turn of the century? Could you do that?
don't you think shutters make it look kind of 1985?
No, I don't. Well, if, you're looking, so give me a better proposal.
Shutters make it look more turn of the century, in my opinion.
So, I'm just gonna remind Plan Commission that we met on this item twice before. We looked at it last meeting. We made a determination last meeting to send him out, really only to talk about landscaping and parking.
No, that is not
And we
correct.
made suggestions as to
Well,
what
we
we wanted
talked
the
about-
building to
yeah.
look like.
We did, and
Right.
he's brought back what it is that you asked, which is rocks
No,
around
yes, I
doors, up and
disagree.
eaves.
I'll put shutters on the second floor windows. There's 1, 2, 3 double hung windows, double-sided windows, and that could give me a nice segue into coordinating whatever color doors that we use with those shutters up there. That would add a third dimension,
That would help.
something a little
Yeah.
fancier,
That solves the problem.
okay?
It does.
Sure.
Okay, so you're gonna add shutters to where?
Second floor.
Second floor,
There's 3
there's,
windows.
there's 3 large windows.
The 3 large
And I
windows
think,
on the
I think that'll look nice and add another dimension of color.
We used to have to historically catalog our buildings to see what looked old, and you'd be surprised how many shutters we had at the turn of the century. So I think it'll look great.
True.
And back then they were actually
The
working
house in the
shutters.
corner district, the black shutters.
That's
Okay, I'll do black shutters.
Match the roof.
Okay,
Is it possible that then on the first floor, if you're doing shutters on the second, that you could do some kind of flower boxes under the windows on the first?
yes.
Okay,
That is a bump out window. All 3 of those are bump out windows.
okay.
It might be a little
That might be
challenging.
a little challenging.
Yeah.
Bump out, like a bay window?
No,
Quick, casement.
No, it extends out. I think this one's
10 inches
approximately
maybe.
1.5 feet, 18 inches to allow for, if we go to our, our plan.
I had not noticed that earlier. And there it is, yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
it makes for an inviting kitchen with that is,
This drawing shows a wide white area around each of those bottom windows. And
correct.
That doesn't look like turn-of-the-century type construction. That looks like a modern piece of wood on there. If that's a 10-inch wide or whatever.
Right. I don't want to do strictly mid-century or as you're talking about, and I don't want to throw in terms like mid-century modern. I don't even know what that is anymore.
Well, we like what has been done at the bowling alley and at
The
on deck.
creamery,
Several
Okay,
buildings in town have done that kind of thing. And if you don't want to mix 2 different styles.
that's what I'm afraid of doing.
And, well, we're trying to get it back to the style we like. Instead of
I,
mixing it, we want you to make it the style that we've asked for.
okay,
And that's not these wide white boards around the windows, in my opinion.
would that be more attractive with a larger window?
No, it'd be more attractive with the right moldings around the windows. This is a little hard to tell exactly what that is, but if you look back at the homes that were built back during that time when we're talking about, they didn't have this type of moldings around the windows.
Okay.
So Don, then are you suggesting larger windows? Because this would be pretty common to have some kind of,
I'm not objecting to the windows, I'm objecting to the moldings around the windows.
right, but then what do you replace it with?
Something that isn't just a big wide board around the window.
We could do a smaller version of that, keeping the same window size. And just make it smaller. Proportionally, we didn't want to make it so small that it didn't look proportional to the rest of the building. And I think that possibly by increasing the window size, that would alleviate the wide board that you're objecting to.
Well, yeah, if you make the window wider and the molding smaller,
Okay.
then that would solve the problem.
Better balance.
I like that, that's good.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay. Okay to go on the parking?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so Don, for the minutes, what do you want it to say that you want for the trim?
The windows are going to be larger and the trim is going to be smaller than as presented.
On the first floor.
First floor.
On the first floor.
More in keeping with the trim around the upstairs windows.
And then the upstairs windows are going to, those three are going to have shutters.
Correct.
Okay, so on the first floor, the windows will be larger and the trim will be smaller than depicted on the plans?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe you're referring down to the two kitchen windows on either end. right?
Yes.
With the light, okay.
Well, the one in the center has the same trim on it.
So you're not having color boxes then?
Trim
No.
should be the same around all the downstairs windows.
So if I understand, you want all three windows larger?
No, I just don't like the big white trim on there, which
Okay.
doesn't fit with the rest of
Okay.
the building.
Especially on the two side windows. on
It's
the
going
new
to
end
look
unit.
really small, is what he's saying. That's what he's trying to convey, is that without that, you won't have a balance. So either he's got to make the windows larger, which will be a greater expense, with the trim smaller, and he stated he was willing to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, and all I said was the trim on the center window should match.
all
the-
three
the
bottom
trim
windows.
on the other two.
Okay. Either that window will stay the same and we'll decrease the size of the trim, or we'll make the window wider to fit with the balance, especially on the end units.
Yeah, so those, also the downstairs windows all have the same look to them.
Okay. Okay. I can do that. Okay, relative to parking. Should we wait for Zeke to come back on that, or should we just go ahead and start?
You may go ahead.
Barge ahead.
All right, here's where we are. As you know, we had started with a large, it was about 80 feet by 35 feet. Didn't go along with the ordinance for parking. At the close of the meeting, it was brought up with the idea of doing angle parking, invading into the space. And as we have here, we will come in approximately 14 and a half feet into my property. What I would do is dedicate back to the village that 14 and a half by 100 feet yields about 1,450 square feet. And dedicating that back to the village, that would be then the existing sidewalk will be moved, as you can see from the drawing on the site plan. Then there's 8.5 feet that would go to my existing lot line now, yielding 14.5 feet. Then those angled spaces extend out to where the initial sidewalk was. If you follow along before the curve, you see where that curved up?
Yep.
Okay, if you follow along there, it only sticks out into the existing parking spaces by about 2 feet. That's good.
Okay.
So what we've done there is gone from 4.4 spaces to 8. If Pipka's property is involved, there'd be 9. Long and short of it is that we're not invading into the traffic flow line. I think that's one of the things we talked about last month. There's adequate slant spaces of 23 feet. In the developer's agreement, we'll get into any other issues with it, but I think this is primarily what you proposed at that meeting. All the setbacks are correct. Impervious space is 49%. I think we're hitting all the checklist items.
I like this parking plan better than putting it in back.
Yeah, that's it's better.
Yes.
It's very different. We are
experimenting, yes.
You all want to leave the conversation about the development agreement up to the village board, and I say that largely because this is going to pertain to finances and how financial conditions are placed on this. When I tried to take my first stab at writing this, I ultimately got a little ways into it. I went and met with Pat down at Mackinall's. We talked about it. I did not put a ton of energy and effort into this first draft simply because I thought the conversation would be all over the place in terms of how we would ultimately flesh that out.
Flush what out?
Well, how do we are these parking spaces the villages, so to speak? Does it go through CSM and become part of the public right-of-way? Do we leave the property line where it is, and in leaving the property line where it is, have parking spaces similar to what's over at Mitch Larson's, which is like half in and half out of the right-of-way, which is all kinds of a headache when it comes time to maintenance and repair work? Because if the village comes along to do a resurface on that section of Maple, who pays for it? Do we go ahead and pave Mitch's parking spaces? Or do we work with Mitch and say, hey, Mitch, you need to pony up because now we're doing the resurfacing? Or even worse, do we have really new asphalt and then really old, bumpy, cracked up asphalt that's just gonna crack up the village's new asphalt? So in my mind, my recommendation to you all, yes.
So we're in the, part of this is in the right of way.
Yes, ma'am.
2 feet, he said. Didn't you say 2 feet?
Into the traffic flow goes about 2 feet.
Okay.
Other than that, it would still be, if the right-of-way would be the existing parking spaces. Now, yes, definitely, that's 8.5, or that's,
the width of the parallel stall.
the width of the parallel stall.
Okay, I don't understand the comment that it goes into the traffic 2 feet.
Okay. So,
Why would we allow something to go into the traffic lane?
Or are you saying it goes into the existing parking space?
Into the existing
Oh,
parking space,
okay.
Denise.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So a couple of things. One, he's got 23-foot parking stalls. Standard is 20 foot, so a little bit longer than what it is you would normally have. So that's, I would presume, to accommodate turning radii, to be able to get out and foster the in and out motion over longer vehicles that may be
Right,
there.
if you've got people unloading and things like that, you want to have some space, and I don't want them. So I cut into my space somewhat to allow for that.
The one thing I would say is if this is a parking plan that you like, I would recommend that you kick it over to the village's engineers and let them have a go at it and determine that this is going to be an adequate plan set for moving ahead. Just at first glance, I don't see any challenges with it, but you're talking about tolerances of 1 to 2 feet, and you should verify that we're going to be able to continue to get the fire truck down there and the ambulance down there and all those things. If Robert E. Lee looks at it and says, hey, this is a great idea, then it's a great idea. I'm going on that presumption right now. It's a great idea.
Okay, so then if this is approved as presented and amended, one of the conditions would be that Robert E. Lee would verify the parking
Yeah.
circulation, just
Well,
parking?
just the parking plan, right? They would look at it as a public parking plan, even though it would be delineated, it would be demarked as being for that particular development.
And again, as we talk about parking, as all conversations lead back to parking, for some clarification for anybody in the audience that was not here at our last meeting when this idea came up, there was, on this particular parcel, there was going to be 2 driveways. And because of the vision triangle or whatever it is that you want to talk about it, we were going to be losing parking because of those. We might have retained 1 spot in the very center of it. So just for information purposes, we weren't going to have any, but maybe 1, and that wasn't guaranteed. And because now somebody could say, well, now we're giving up, the village's road for an individual who's only going to have their parking there. And yes, that is true, but we weren't going to have any there anyway.
Well, he's providing 8 spaces here. How many does he really need?
He needs 8.
8.
Okay, that's all.
Yep.
Where you get a real victory is if this particular parking situation goes, and I would say as you look at Virg Timmy's plan submission, you should look at that also. Can this be accommodated? Can Pipka's be accommodated? Mr. Tom Seeger has said he doesn't like this, but ultimately if this ends up being on both sides, I don't know how Tom feels about it now. I know Tom's back there, but
We're not having that conversation.
yeah, we don't have to have the conversation right now. but it's something to look at longer term.
I'll make a motion, we move as amended.
Motion by Bell,
Second?
second by Baker.
You want that on the condition that the village's engineer must approve the parking?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. One more step, Pat.
One more step. Developers agreement?
My recommendation would be that you and Denise or a couple of members of the Plan Commission get together and work out the details of that. This is gonna be very site specific. Maybe that's a meeting with you, Denise, and Attorney Nesbitt. I don't know how she wanna proceed, but you gotta be involved with it somehow.
Thank you. Janelle and I will work it out, right?
Sure.
That was not a good vote of confidence, Janelle.
The storm's almost over for Janelle. Janelle, I'll call you next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
All right, item
Thank you, everyone.
number 9, preliminary review of plans submitted by Sarah Anderson for a wedding event venue combined with bridesmaid, bride, and groom suites to be
Did we
constructed
miss number
on
8?
Number 8's a village board item
Oh,
for
thank you.
action.
This was a combined.
on parcels 181-blank. Zeke?
Okay, so pulling up a PowerPoint presentation, I'm gonna turn the lights down one more time. Sarah and Nick, as they're kind of moving into position. Give you a little bit of background on this for perspective.
We prepared a 7 to 8 minute video or presentation. Do you want us to give that or?
If you can tighten that down, that'd be great. But
We will, yes.
ultimately, just so the public knows the general area where we're talking about, I've skipped ahead on your PowerPoint to delineate this. This is off of Fieldcrest Road. To orient everyone to this project site, this is the county highway shop right here, and this is a 30-acre site of what would be assembled properties. To move ahead with that, Sarah, you can roll.
Okay. So sorry, we're not developers and we're pitching you our idea. So this is new to us. But hi, my name's Sarah. Thank you so much for your time. We're really excited to be here. Nick and I, oh sorry.
I'm Nick. Thank you for this opportunity to pitch our idea too.
When Nick and I got married up here in 2015, we recognized a real need for a wedding venue. At that time, we put together a business plan and we've been hard at work on it since. The slide. The wedding industry is a $54 billion industry, and Chicago alone makes up $1.4 billion of that industry. Currently, 24% of weddings are destination weddings.
Direct tourism in Door County totaled $332 million spent in 2015 and has been on the rise ever since. There's a shortage for in-demand wedding venues in Door County.
So what does all this mean and why is it important? It's important because this billion-dollar industry is thriving, and with tourism and spending at an all-time high in Door County, we are missing out on the opportunity to provide couples a chance to get married in Door County. Nick and I understand this industry, we understand the target market, and we understand the importance of making our venue fit into couples' visions.
Our goal is to create a beautiful, unique experience for our guests that would make a lifelong impression for them. We plan on doing this by creating a space that is great for events, weddings, and having the best customer service for them. And we plan on doing that right here in beautiful Sister Bay.
Slide. How will this benefit Sister Bay? If you could back up one. Aside from building a gorgeous space that the community can use for events and for gatherings, we're thrilled that our venue is going to be helping local businesses, bakers, restaurants, caterers, florists, builders, retail stores, hotels, musicians, DJs, artists, photographers, videographers, landscapers, salons, makeup artists, designers, local churches, transportation, and the list goes on.
We plan on partnering with all of these great vendors in Door County to make the space a success. Aside from these partnerships, we would be attracting hundreds of people to Sister Bay every weekend.
Slide. Are we competition for Sister Bay? No, we're not. The hundreds of people that we're going to be attracting to our venue every single weekend will spend a fraction of their time at our venue. Days leading up to their event and residual time will be spent at Sister Bay's bars, Sister Bay's restaurants, hotels, beaches, local attractions, and lodges. Let's take a closer look. We've thrown together some, well, we haven't thrown together, we've very carefully placed together vision boards. And I think you've seen some of these before, but I'm just going to quickly go through them to give you a real idea of our event. A venue that depicts modern-day farmhouse meets elegance creates a luxury retreat for up to 300 guests. A venue would be equipped with a kitchen to meet catering needs, as well as an outdoor space, ideal for cocktail hours and ceremonies. A bridal suite, as well as groom's quarters, will be sure to accommodate brides and grooms on their big day. Slide.
Go on. That's the outdoor area right there. So this is depicts the bride and groom suite that we envision building. It's just an independent luxury cottage that would accommodate the needs of brides and grooms on their big day. Next slide. This shows a vision board of a guest house.
Hold tight, Nick. This way, board. Sure.
It won't get much better.
Yeah, it's just not real good quality.
And you guys have the papers in front of you,
That
the
helps.
vision boards you're seeing now, just so you know.
Okay.
This is just a vision board of the guest house that this is how we kind of see it. It would be on the premise of the event for guests to share in the evening or maybe the entire week leading up to the wedding. We see this being the perfect size for wedding parties or families and even family reunions, possibly.
We're all about preserving the natural beauty of the land. We're extremely proud of the land that we've selected for our venue, and we cannot wait to showcase its organic beauty. The serenity, natural landscape, and woods is the perfect place to exchange vows, mingle with family, or clear your head during a retreat. Slide. Keeping with the theme of preserving the natural beauty of the land, our lighting plan includes uplighting on select trees, the venue, subtle walkway lighting to provide a safe environment for guests. String lights would be used to complete the vision of couples looking for a simple romantic feel. Let's take a closer look.
All right, so as Zeke pointed out earlier, this is kind of where the 30 acres that we have an approved contingent offer is located. It's highlighted right there, and it is on Fieldcrest Road.
Slide. Can you hold up the illustration?
I'm just going to say this. Of all my 4 years here, this is the best landscape layout I've seen anybody do.
Thank you. We told you we were going to try and make you proud. This is our illustrative plan. I can kind of walk you through this. You'll see vineyard grapes in section 1, heavy screened berm planting 2, which screens out both neighbors. 3 is an existing tree colonnade. The entry procession, is split down the middle of the property, number 5, leading you to the venue. You'll see the parking over here, which is heavily screened and landscaped. Moving towards the back of the property, we have a maintenance building.
Sarah, just for the sake of everybody, should you come up here and talk off of this so everybody can see at the same time?
Guys.
That's okay. Nick, you come up here too.
Yeah.
Love the boards, but
Sure. Okay, so if you could go back one. So our vineyard up here in here.
Pointer.
You'll see we're planning on planting vineyard grapes. We're going to be doing heavy.
Nick, be Vanna White.
Yeah.
Thank you. Heavy screening with berms and trees to block out neighbors on both sides. Number 3 is an existing tree colonnade. That's really cool. It blocks out Fieldcrest Road. Number 4, there's some signage. Number 5, you'll have an entry road that leads up to the venue, which you'll see at number 6. But our parking, which we have heavily screened and include landscaping. Moving back down to the property, the maintenance building. Moving up, you'll see our guest house, which is next to our orchard, which could potentially be magnolia trees or apple trees. Higher up, tucked back in the woods, is the bride and groom suite, surrounded by beautiful, lush gardens. And then moving up even higher into the woods is a beautiful open space that we plan on leaving completely as is, if anything, just adding to the beauty of the land. It's a great space for couples to exchange vows or just enjoy the land. Thank you.
So this is the master planning diagram. It just shows the various areas of the land and the different phases that we plan on doing things.
Our planting diagram, this shows you the different trees that we're proposing on planting. For screening, we're looking at cedars, sugar maples, eastern redbuds, and serviceberries. The vineyard planting, of course, will be vineyard grapes. The parking lot, we even want to make our parking lot beautiful. We plan on doing this with red oaks and flowering dogwoods. The orchard, as I mentioned, back here, could potentially be apple trees or magnolia trees. And then moving back up to the private gardens, just various different flowers to make it really beautiful. Here's our architectural facade. We are so excited to see it up here. This is the front facade of the building. It shows you the front of the venue as well as the L shape. And then this is the visual of the drop-off. So as you'll see, you can see the main venue here moving into the L shape. And it's all to scale, so that's what it will really look like. So thank you so much, and we are happy to address any questions.
I would like to piggyback on top of Zeke's comment about your landscaping plan, the best he's seen in 4 years. In my 16 years of being planning commission chair, I have never been so wowed by a presentation, by the thought process, by the material that was delivered to us.
Thank
Bravo.
you. Thank you so much.
They have set a standard.
Absolutely.
Oh, that makes us so happy. Thank you.
I'd like to point out that unless I'm not aware of some different varieties, that redbud, holly, dogwood, and magnolia will not survive in this part of Wisconsin.
Okay, well, I have no experience with
Let me throw this out. So the architect that was doing this is out of Texas. So these
That's what I
things
thought.
they do real good in Texas.
I figured he must have been from Tennessee or something.
And who doesn't love fixer-upper magnolia? So we'll make sure we get plants that can stay alive.
The other, my biggest concern with this is you're talking about 300 guests possibly,
Yes.
and your parking lot holds, I don't know, 150 cars or something. I can't imagine living in this house right here, which is almost a stone's throw from that parking lot, and trying to have my two kids go to sleep at 8 o'clock
Yeah.
and not have a considerable amount of noise at 11:30 when your venue lets out.
Well, that's a great question, or comment. We actually went over to Tracy's house yesterday and talked to her. We have made considerable changes to our plans, even just before coming to you to try and accommodate the neighbors. One of those things includes putting the parking in that section. We see this growing and developing over time, so that kind of prevents things from going up right next to her house. In addition, we've changed the whole layout of the building. Originally, it was an L shape, and the whole porch was in the front portion of the property.
I'm just talking about the location of the parking.
Oh, sure. Well, with the heavy screening and a berm, we're hoping that we can make sure the house is completely blocked out. I can't lie and say there won't be any noise at any point because it's just unrealistic, but we are going to do our best to completely block out their house.
I know that, I don't live in their house, but I live close to it, and you can hear the music downtown from their house.
So
I can't imagine what it's going to be like with music in this building, which is over about 300 yards from their house. The weddings last late in the evening.
So ultimately, I'm going to throw out a couple of game changers for you guys. I did not prepare a presentation for this because this just passed the General Assembly this last week. There has been a change at the state statute level for how we issue conditional use permits. So to Don's point, if you have concerns about noise, you need to make those concerns identifiable in a completely objective fashion, much like we have noise ordinances throughout the rest of the village. So you could certainly enact a condition that would be commensurate with the background and surrounding areas for here. And I would invite you guys to actually visit the scene at some point as this project progresses with a decibel meter and an MP3 player and an amplified speaker, and actually see what it sounds like from Miss Weeborg's house if you put some speakers in the potential location of that property. Go out there and test it out, and then assign the conditions. Don't do them arbitrarily.
Well, I'm not assigning conditions, I'm just expressing a concern so that they don't do something and then find out later that it creates a problem for the people who already live there.
Yes, sir. And I think that's why I'm saying, get this weed board involved, and you guys get involved, and you'll come up with what that thing is.
It doesn't
should
make any
review
sense.
the new statutes. They were released to the Realtors. I didn't think to bring them in tonight. I apologize. But everyone should review them.
It's serious
Huge
stuff.
change, huge change.
I believe that was something that the village sent down a resolution that we were against of,
We did.
usurping Plan Commission authority, basically.
Yeah.
Sarah, just to Don's point, you know, I know you're going to address the issue with the neighbors, but does it make any sense, you have the vineyards on one side and then the parking and some other space on the, to swapping the parking, or does that not work for you?
That could work. I
You've got a
mean,
house on either side.
There's another house on the other side.
Yeah.
I know, but the other house is way
Further
back
back.
here.
It would be farther away.
That's Matt Tischler's
Wouldn't be
house,
as
I
close.
believe.
Is,
Just asking the question.
you
Yep.
you had, yep.
That was actually gonna be one of the questions I would ask. I'm Eric Weedor, Tracy's wife, 10428. If it would be possible to switch the parking lot to the other side, it does seem like there would be quite a bit of noise and lights going on, that type of thing, late at night. I'm a commercial fisherman, so I need to get up early in the morning, and I have to have a fairly good night of sleep. I would be fairly concerned about that. I'm also concerned, it seems like my mother has made quite a substantial investment in the village of Sister Bay. She not only owns the property next to it, but she owns a property in the development behind it. And I believe that it's going to devalue our property. I don't see any way that it wouldn't devalue our property. To have that type of an event in a residential neighborhood, I don't think makes sense. And I would question, to the point of the noise, what type of amplification system, what type of speakers would you actually be using?
I don't
Oh,
know.
what kind of amplification, I guess, is what I would be asking.
So
Oh.
let me interject on that, and this is from a physicist background. So what I would look at would be decibels at the property line, and that's been discussed widely here within the village. Ultimately, you need to set a threshold level that's commensurate with the background. There are any number of engineering solutions that can be employed inside or outside the venue to attenuate to those needs. So you could probably have a 5,000 watt system going in there, not hear it outside if you built it right. But at the same time, you could have a 20 watt system in there and it'd be annoying as all get out if it's not built right.
That is also part of the conditional use.
Yes, ma'am.
Process.
So decibels at the lot line that's gonna interrupt your sleep.
I guess I'm also concerned that if you do issue a conditional use permit, it's hard to walk that back. I think once you give it to them, it would be hard to.
So, under the new state statutes, if they violate the conditions precedent in the permit, the Plan Commission may be inclined to give some leeway to say, look, we're gonna allow 3 violations, and then we're gonna pull the permit, right, something to that effect. Ultimately, the responsibility is on the property owner or business manager to keep things within limits. We had challenges 4 years ago from our downtown bars and restaurants. We instituted some noise limits. I think when I first got here, I got dozens of phone calls. In the last year, we got 1 or 2. I'm not referring to the public park space or the public concerts that take place. We still get complaints about those. But for our business owners, we've been able to lock that down because they take decibel meters out into the street, measure the sound levels from street level or from as the neighbors would hear them, and they've been able to mitigate a significant portion of that.
And also, so the parking could definitely be shifted. I understand your concerns, and we want to work together and make everyone happy. The building would be a brand-new building, so there would be, the proper insulation and things put in so that some of the sound can be contained. In terms of listening to music, we're not going to have a full-set band outside at midnight. We would never want to disrupt our neighbors. Maybe we block off outdoor music at a specific time. That's, maybe that's 9 o'clock, and then everything has to move inside. So definitely ways that we could work together.
Mr. Weeborg, I would hope you'd be heavily involved in setting the conditions with the Plan Commission and play an active participatory role in that to make the project a success and to continue to do the thing you're doing and your family's done for generations here.
We will need a lot of fish. And also, I just wanted to point out that our property does border up to other businesses. The pet clinic is right behind us, and it touches our property. Right down the street, there is the museum, and then also touching our property is the state
Highway Department.
Management Highway Department. Thank you.
Did you address the two-phase project? You talked about the second phase.
Yes, basically we need more money before we can build. In phase 2, we see the guest house going up, as well as the maintenance building. Probably that's when we would put in the orchard, the living orchard. So basically, as soon as we can start generating more funds, we're going to put that money back into the property to make it more beautiful and to keep that high-end feel.
The vineyards?
The vineyards are not phase 2. We'd like to plant grapes right away. The idea is to create this beautiful space for brides that they don't want to leave. That they can go take pictures at a vineyard, they can go back to the woods, they can go in front of this gorgeous building that we plan on building. It's all right there for them.
Will these grounds be maintained within your boundaries? I don't see any place here for farm implements or anything that would be working the vineyards and mowing the grass and all that goes into that kind of a agricultural operation. Is that something you're going to farm out, or is that part of it?
There's a maintenance building.
Yeah, there is a maintenance building towards the back of the property, kind of hidden.
That's not phase 2?
Well, maybe it just turns into a more elaborate maintenance building in phase 2, but of course we'll need a building, some kind of standalone place to house that equipment, yes. Sure. Yes, so we will plan on having that. And this building is large. I mean, it's a very large building, so we've got a lot of space for storage and things within the building.
What is our notice process again? For the number of is it 1,000-foot radius considering the area? And that would hit all of Northwoods Drive?
It would hit everybody within 1,000 feet.
Go back onto Cherrywood?
Yeah, we can pull it up and look at it.
If you don't mind, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, give me just a second. I'll actually pull the address up for you here if you bear with me.
What's the first part of your question?
Where the notice letters are going.
Oh, notices, okay.
Bear with me just a minute, Mary Kay, and I'll be able to show you that.
No problem.
While you're doing that, I want to revisit the idea that there is currently some rules in force that allow you to only have 10 activities a year. How would you plan to address that?
Well,
that you're referring to is related to county zoning. That is not a local zoning ordinance.
But it's an existing zoning ordinance that they have to address.
Within the county. So we have our own zoning here.
It doesn't apply here?
No, sir.
Oh, okay.
That's just the county.
And let me tell you, I would not be able to build this beautiful place on 10 weddings a year.
I know, that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, so we would definitely need to
Yeah,
have
you'd
many,
want it
many more
open
weddings.
all the time.
Yes, ideally, this is a business, I would like to have an uncapped amount so that we could, make money and keep adding to the beauty of this property.
You know, call on Billy's.
Pardon?
You know, call on Billy's.
You got a question back there.
Oh, sorry.
I own the property where the house is there. My question is, since the elevation of the home is a little bit higher than the property there, how big are these trees going to be? And do you realize how long it takes to grow a great big tree? I mean, you start out with maybe 6 feet, and it takes years for them to get 15, 20 feet. And with some of them, that's the maximum size. Another thing, with the vineyard, you don't just plant a vineyard, you plant little plants, I don't think they grow from seeds. And it's going to take years before they're bearing fruit to make them cutesy for pictures. And another thing, you've never addressed the actual size of the building in feet by feet. And then also with the vineyards and with the orchard, what about spraying? Do you realize how many times you have to spray an apple orchard in order for there to be any fruit of any quality? And I have no idea with the vineyards how much spraying has to be done there, but obviously there's some. So what about the drift on that? Who is going to do that?
So those are items regulated by the state. So the state actually controls application during windy conditions on a per pesticide or herbicide basis. So that's all delineated in state statute.
But I'm just wondering if they've thought about that, because they don't know what trees are growing here. And also, is this the limit of the development that you're planning? Is this big building the guest house and the honeymoon cottage? Or with 30 acres, are you planning more in the future? Are you building a hotel there? Are you building a restaurant or a kitchen to accommodate catering your own venue to make money there? With high-end, I think about the possibility of having a chef instead of having restaurant food brought in. Those are some things that I wonder about.
So part of the conditional use process is it delineates what can be done on the property. So right now what's up is an assembly hall, and an assembly hall would include all items related to dealing with that assembly. That could include a kitchen on the site to do prep work. The Planning Commission could also say, nope, we don't want to see a kitchen on the site to do prep work. By listening to what the developer's needs are and trying to be sensitive to both the needs of the community and the needs of the developer, ultimately the project can move ahead. I know in conversations I've had with Ms. Anderson, it's been consistent that she would work with outside caterers initially and then potentially look at a kitchen build out to be able to handle their own stuff. Later on, there's been no conversation about a hotel. As a matter of fact, I know she's had conversations with some area hoteliers who may be interested in co-marketing.
So,
to Ms. Shumway's question, Ms. Shumway, this is the list of addresses that would receive a notice.
Slow down, Zeke. Is that all of Stony Ridge?
So that's Stony Ridge and Cherrywood, a lot of that's Stony Ridge. There's Northwoods, Fieldcrest, Flint Ridge 57.
What's the total number?
It doesn't give me an aggregate number. I guess I gotta look at the line. Yeah, 145. Denise,
are we taking questions?
you didn't take any comment.
Okay. Yes.
My name is Vilas Wojciechowskis. I am the owner of Sister Bay Inn. My address is 10490. I do plenty of investments in Sister Bay too. We have 4 houses, 1 hotel. One of the houses is located on 2374 Parkview Drive. I don't know how people are familiar with that location. On one side we have Husby's Music, on the other side we do have Sister Bay Water Park, the music auditorium down there. It's a rental house. We have people who come in with kids and we do go sleep at 8 o'clock and they can't sleep. So I think if this young couple, which is from out of town and sometimes being from out of town, it's hard to work in here because some local people just get stuck to their guns. So I just want to help them out a little bit. If they do everything right and do all the music inside, it can be managed, I guess. I don't think it will devaluate the property value. I think this business could bring a lot to the other businesses in Sister Bay and actually improve the value. And the proof for that would be James Larson. He's doing exactly the same wedding thing, maybe not exactly the same, but he's doing it and it's working out. So that would be just one of the examples.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Another question in the back. Behind the camera.
Okay. I'm going to give it 7 more minutes till, and then we're going to wrap this agenda item up. Yes, way in the back.
Hi. Yes, we talked with Sarah and Nicole about yesterday. My concern is we have 2 soon-to-be 3 kids. What if there's like a Saturday afternoon, and there's intoxicated people walking around or driving down a road? I mean, we're not the only ones with kids, and we have a big yard for them to play with. There's ones down the street, though, that they play in the street constantly. I mean, I worry about the safety for them. You know, Saturday afternoons while your brides or grooms are saying I do, he's cutting the lawn. I mean, how are they gonna like for 2 to 3 hours if you're having an outdoor ceremony? He's cutting the grass because it's a residential area. That's what we do on the weekends when you're off from work. I mean, how would they feel about that? And that's really just what I had to add, I guess, too. I appreciate that the parking lot would be on the other side because I'm a crazy light sleeper and I would be up every time the door shut. But if you could just
So to address the, maybe since we're trying to work together and we're gonna go above and beyond to meet your needs, we could figure out a time that, you know, we schedule our ceremonies around your grass cutting, maybe it bumps up a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, you know, the ceremonies will be far enough back, but again, you know, it's gonna be a learning situation for us and hopefully give us a hopefully we can just, you know, work together and figure that out. In terms of drunk people, it's definitely not something we want to bring to the community. There is alcohol involved with weddings.
Yes, I'm going to speak to that one. So under the new state statutes, we have to hold every business to the same standard of the 4th Amendment of the United States Constitution. So if we allow a bar in Sister Bay and granting this conditional use permit, we'd be obligated to grant them that license if so requested, meeting state standards. So unless we're going to eliminate every bar within the village based on a concern of safety, we have to grant that same safety consideration to them.
And also, Don, I didn't get back to you on, you talked about parking in a certain amount of spaces. I'm from the city, I take public transportation all the time. I'm a huge component of partnering up with local transportation companies to have nobody driving if possible. Obviously, that's not totally realistic, but we're going to try and partner up to get people on, you know, scheduled transportation, that there will be a set driver, so that we can eliminate a lot of the driving.
Louise?
My name is Louise Housen. I'm the coordinator for the Advancement Association. We're about 175 businesses that are based in Sister Bay. And should this work out, we'd love to have you as a member.
Thank you.
I'd love to be a member. That's all I have to say. And I have a background, actually. I spent a lot of years in the bridal industry on the jewelry end. And it's a huge industry. And I think we have a big opportunity in the village for it. But I can certainly understand the concerns of your neighbors. So I'm here to just speak on the business side of it. And one thing that I would ask that while your development would certainly bring revenue to the village, typically I think most of the weddings that you would hold would be run by a wedding planner. And our wedding planners up here are so talented and wonderful, but they have their go-to people. So they have their go-to photographer, they got their go-to caterer, et cetera, et cetera. And I would encourage you to have them think broadly about their go-to people as it relates to. And so I think we as an association would want to partner with you and work with you on meeting people that you may not necessarily, you're not from here. Neither am I. I live here now, so I know how that goes. But we want you to partner with some of our, because we have three very fine caterers here that you may not even know about. Because again, a bride chooses her planner, and that's who she goes with. That's what it, and that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So we would encourage you for that. And as far as transportation goes, this could be a great opportunity to figure out, because, we don't have any. We don't
Right.
have Uber.
Right.
We don't have it.
Right.
And we struggle to find that for, I would say, every single event I run. Our office runs most of the events in town.
Okay.
And we're challenged for most of them, in
Yeah.
particular, one in particular. So certainly, if we could, we would like to figure that out too.
Yeah.
So I wish you well.
Thank you.
And do the best you can to
Thank
try
you.
to make this work for everybody.
I appreciate your comments, and from getting married up here in 2015, we used Carrie Baldwin for our planner, and we got married at Horseshoe Bay, and we want the best of the best within Door County and the best of the best, everywhere at our facility, so that our guests are having the best experience. So we're definitely open to using local talent and bringing in additional talent. And
We'll have a bridal fair for you in the office, you can meet everybody.
That sounds fantastic.
Thank you. Okay. I'm not going to take any more questions or comments. I'm sorry, normally I just let it roll, but it is 5:15. We still have a board meeting. This is not a public hearing, so I apologize, but that's the way it's going to go today.
What do we need?
We need a motion for preliminary.
My question, I'll be recusing myself.
Okay.
Our office represents the buyers and the seller of the parcel. I do have a question in terms of.
If you're recusing yourself?
My questions are, this is the only time I can ask these questions, basically.
If you're recusing yourself, you can't ask the questions.
You cannot ask the question.
You don't get to participate in the public process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask her.
I know you
but-
can ask the question. So,
Just preliminary approval? then?
But
Preliminary approval?
conditional upon the village board passing the proposed text amendment. But this was originally envisioned as a genuine joint meeting. Now that that's disjointed, the board has to act before this can become valid.
Okay. So we need a motion for preliminary
approval
Approval.
contingent upon the board
board's-
amending. doing
whatever
the
that
text
just
amendment.
said, make, do.
And I'll second it.
Okay, I so moved.
Margaret just made the
Janelle
motion.
writes it.
I approve, I
Motion
move
by
whatever
Retzloff
Janelle
and
just
second
writes,
by
and you're
Mel.
going to second it, thank you.
Help you out.
Thank you, I appreciate the help.
And then, sorry, did you guys just approve it?
Yeah.
No, we haven't voted yet.
Okay, sorry.
We just made a motion, but we have to vote.
I think the other thing I'd like to say is, this is gonna come back for public input a number of times before this is through. So it's not like this is the only chance people are gonna get to speak on this.
Correct.
I had a question on that. So the property that we're purchasing, our close date is January 8th. It's contingent on this. So we were hoping to fit in the public hearing at the next meeting. I didn't.
Next meeting will be in January.
So ultimately, from a ordinance standpoint from us, you would need to submit that request to us in writing. We would then work to get that scheduled to accommodate that. That requires a lot of juggling from the people up here. They may or may not be able to accommodate that.
By the 8th, I'm going to say that that's going to be a challenge. You may want to extend your date to the
They are
following week.
unable to do that.
Unable to do that.
I've had that conversation, which is why I'm saying what I'm saying. So this either has got to roll or we got to forget about it.
We can only do what we can do. We can
Well,
try.
that's the point. You can try.
And
And
I
they
don't-
got a lot of work to do on their end to get ready for this.
I thought that the meeting was on the 26th, so I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to spring anything. I was just going under that.
That this
thinking
meeting was on the 26th, yeah.
Oh, I
So-
thought there was another one on the 26th.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Let's see.
Ultimately, this would likely fall sometime right after Christmas, but before their closing date, because you'll have to hit a Class 2 notice requirement, which requires 2 insertions in the newspaper.
All right, so let staff figure that out and
Okay.
inform us, please. Janelle will make the phone calls as usual. Can you make it?
Yep.
How did that motion go, Janelle?
Okay. No, you'd have to have a board meeting then too.
You would likely need to have another joint meeting where you actually, I would
Let's
say you need to
not
have a
do these
single
joint
item.
meetings again. We should have the plan and then we should have the board
Correct.
separately because these joint meetings are not good.
Correct.
Okay.
I second that.
You guys can do it however you want to.
And we will.
So what was our
All right,
motion?
how about this?
She's working on
That
it.
the
Here we
plan
go.
commission grants preliminary approval of the plan submitted by Sarah Anderson for a wedding/event venue combined with bridesmaids/bride and groom suites to be constructed on parcel numbers, and then the 4 parcel numbers, and if possible, a public hearing and a related village board meeting shall be scheduled and conducted prior to January 8th. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
I don't know that the next meeting.
Oh, that the
date
next meeting has to be in there.
Has to be in there, that's
No, 'cause
out of
that-
our control.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't want me to schedule it before the 8th?
Well, you can try,
Don't
but it
put it
doesn't,
in the
doesn't
motion.
have to be part
But
of
just
the
don't put it
motion.
in the motion,
Okay.
Janelle.
Okay. So just end it with the parcel numbers, and a public hearing shall be scheduled.
Yes. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Aye,
Thank you.
So you're opposed?
You're
then?
opposed?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
How many public hearings could they potentially anticipate
One for the plan commission.
for the conditional use hearing? Just
and-
one?
I'm sorry, one for the plan commission, one for the village board.
Why would the village board have?
Yeah.
You have an ordinance, that's the issue.
That's
I'm
not a
drawing-
public
I'm
hearing.
drawing a complete blank right now. You're right, that's not a public hearing.
One.
Okay, the last item on the Plan Commission's agenda.
Oh, I thought we were done.
No.
Oh, dear.
Item number 12, discussion regarding whether or not the electrical lines for the Swamp Pump repair/replacement project must be buried.
Just barely.
Mike, I was gonna originally take care of you as item number 1, and I forgot, I apologize. Through my research of the zoning code, there is nothing in there stating it. It is in the land division code. And where it is located in the land division code is under subdivisions. So, in my opinion, I don't know how the rest of the plan commission reads it, it is not necessary for the utility to bury those lines.
So I had a conversation with Mr. Cuffin, and the conversation went like, this applied to all properties everywhere within the village, and that is how Sister Bay Bowl was handled, Mitch Larson's property on deck was handled, Drink Coffee was handled, Wild Tomato was handled, so virtually our whole downtown was handled in a similar fashion to this.
But that is not what it says in the code.
I'm telling you, your past practice, you can determine whatever that needs to be. But I was told walking in the door, one of the most critical things that would occur for me as zoning administrator is to ensure that everyone put their stuff underground in order to facilitate a very long-term plan. When the village does build out 50 or 100 years and everything goes underground at some point, then those services would already be there. That's up to you guys to determine if you want to do that. But that was Bob's vision for what was going to happen.
Did you have those pictures for me, Janelle?
Yep.
Can I say something?
Please.
Well,
It makes no difference to me. I need to
no,
be
I'm
upfront
not
with that.
opposed to whatever you have to do.
Are they all the same? We can pass them around?
Yeah.
It's like a 3-foot by 4-foot building that I can put a roof on it and different siding. I was just gonna put a nicer building because it doesn't look that good because it was built in 1978, I believe.
I don't want to argue with Bob.
Can you tell us where this is?
Scandia Road, right beside where Mark lives.
Marge, right next door to, this is an easement they have on the Marina Place property. And there's a pump house back there, and there's a swamp, the wetland. I mean, there are ducks, there are all kinds of interesting critters. I'm gonna pass that back to him.
So maybe an in-between is if you don't think anything's gonna happen here for the next 30 years in terms of burying the lines on Scandia, maybe it's not the end of the world to just keep it as is. If you're thinking 30 years from now, you might wanna bury the lines on Scandia for whatever reason, maybe you make him bury it.
Then we'll make them bury it in 30 years.
Sounds good to me.
That's kind of how
I
I
mean,
look at it.
I remembered the ordinance when I built my house 16 years ago. I put them underground but I could not find where it said in the code that made me do that.
Does this line
So I
run,
presumed I did it just because I could or wanted to. So,
does this line run across anyone else's property?
Just hers.
Just Marina Place.
And how do you feel about it?
I don't care one way or the other.
It hasn't hurt you.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's, I mean, nobody sees that from the street, nobody sees it from their condos, you know, it's just there.
There.
I think they should bury it, but I don't think we should compel them to. I think the right thing to do, forward thinking, but that's beyond the scope of the plan commission.
well, you can always make a motion and see where the chips fall, Nate.
Yeah, but from sitting from sitting as a plan commissioner, I don't think that we can compel them. I don't think we should compel them. I think if I was on
Unless you
utilities
agree.
committee, I'd probably say we should do that because it's the best practice for utilities moving forward, because you have the critical infrastructure that's exposed to a power outage from a tree falling on it.
Oh, we just cut like 22 trees back there,
So,
little tiny ones all around the pool. We did it primarily for the pool, but yeah, there's nothing there really anymore.
I think if the property owners in that area who the line goes through their property or over it have an objection, that that's worthy of consideration. If they don't care, then I don't care.
That's how I look at it.
I'm gonna give you.
Then I'll make a motion that the utilities does not have to bury the utilities on the swamp pump building, if that's what it's called.
Not the utilities. Utilities is taking care of it for the village.
Okay, for the village.
It's all, this is
Okay.
all of it.
That's right. I apologize. Motion by Berto. I'm gonna keep
I'll second.
Second by Bell. Any further discussion?
Should I repeat something?
All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
So Mary Kay was.
Mary Kay was opposed.
okay.
And maybe at 5:26, we can all go home. I'll make that motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Second by Gretzmacher. All in
Thank you very
favor?
much.
Aye.
I didn't even have an answer
Denise,
to my
you've been
question.
standing.
Call back into session. Reconvene.
So you heard it all. Okay, are you in the building? Okay.
All set? Okay, so we're gonna take up item 3 on the combined agenda. Consider a motion to approve ordinance number 254, which grants a conditional use permit for apartment buildings to be constructed in the old Sister Bay quarry site, Village of Sister Bay parcel numbers, the 2 that are listed, which property has been assigned an address of to be determined, and consider a motion to approve a related development agreement.
So move, although we are not addressing a development agreement.
I'll second it.
Would you like to have any more discussion amongst yourselves? on
So it doesn't include the development agreement?
Does not include the development.
I'm good.
I'm good.
So a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Much from the plan commission has always worked for us. Item number 8, consider a motion to accept the recommendation of the plan commission and approve ordinance number 251, which amends 66.03113C and 66.0315C and 66.0320C of the zoning code in such fashion that assembly halls are allowed as conditional uses in the CS1 and B1 districts, but are only allowed as a conditional use on parcels listed in the board report.
In R3.
In R3.
In the R3 district. Okay.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Questions?
Nope. R3 only.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consider a motion to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission and approve ordinance number 250, which repeals 66.0310E of the zoning code. Page
Pertaining to
118.
second dwellings.
Yes. 118 on your,
Yep.
This is a sunset clause that was enacted by repealing the sunset clause.
So moved.
Second?
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Item 11, consider a motion to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission and approve ordinance 253, which grants a conditional use permit for a second dwelling on parcel number 181-27-0013A, which has been assigned address of 10863 North Bay Shore Drive.
I think he was here if you have any questions.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item 13, discussions regarding proposed amendments to the Marina Fest bylaws. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Questions?
Yes. Page 137.
Thank you. Page 138. Item number 1, membership, just background information about the makeup. 3 nonprofit organizations, 2 trustees, 2 citizens. I'm just curious on why that particular makeup, why citizens, why not more of the nonprofits?
I think that was a basic recommendation from Chris and Zeke worked on that, and that was basically what they came out with.
The thought process was, the nonprofits, at least in my 4 years with you, tend to be very narrowly focused on their interests and what adds money to their bottom line, and I think that's a good position for them to take. So the idea was to create a significant say on the committee for them by giving them 3 votes to do things, but at the same time create an offsetting body of citizens and trustees that could say, well, you know, what about this other alternative? So there had to be some balance in what was going to be good for the overall festival or event, not just necessarily what was going to be good for selling hot dogs on one day.
Okay, all right.
Do you have a different thought?
I just wanted to know the background.
Okay.
I understand that. I think it's reasonable. Item number 3 on the same page. By October 31st of each year, all nonprofit vendors participating in Marina Fest must provide 15% of their net Marina Fest profits to the employees in the village's administration office. Should it not be the financial director?
So sometimes it is or isn't. I wouldn't argue the wording. If you want to put the finance director, that's fine from a semantic standpoint, but sometimes Heidi takes it, sometimes Janelle takes it, sometimes Stacy takes it, sometimes I take it.
It's generally not received by me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since I do the reconciliations.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Page 139. Item C. The last sentence, may be negotiated with the village administrator. I'm very uncomfortable with that.
Where are you at?
C.
Oh.
Next page, C.
So here's how that is worked as a point of practice. The committee meets 2 to 3 times a year. Once in the beginning to kind of kick things off, once right before the event, and then once as a follow-up after the event. Ultimately, in that intervening time period, they say, hey, go get vendors. And there's a lot of horse trading that takes place to build that event based on the specific of each vendor. So ultimately, what we've tried to do is to achieve a balance of what it is the vendor can actually afford to pay and what will it take to add the event. So this same process is essentially how we got the bouncy houses. It's how we got, we had a craft vendor come in there a couple of years ago, I'm blanking on the person's name. It's how we got the popcorn vendor.
I'd feel much more comfortable unless I'm in the minority of the committee or the village board making that determination.
The only issue is when you're booking people.
It gets
They have
challenging.
to, you're at this time of year, and the Marina Fest committee might not meet till April.
It was done for logistic reasons, Denise, and ultimately anything.
And if everybody disagrees with me, that's fine, I can live with that.
Just gotta trust people, Denise. I'm back.
Oh, joy.
I agree with you, Denise. I think that we shouldn't be handing that over to the, especially when a village administrator uses the term horse trading, that kind of erodes my confidence.
That's gonna change.
Well, we also don't know who the next administrator is
So
going
what
to
do you
be.
want there instead?
Just take out the administrator, just the board.
The board or any committee, it could be parks, it could be the Marina Fest
How about the
committee.
board or its designee?
Perfect.
Sure.
Got that?
Okay.
Yep.
And then in, oh, that lettering's wrong. We go from C to B,
Oh,
And then back to,
and then back to C. Did not notice that before. Okay, required security deposit, the last sentence, applicable deductions will be made. I know that when Parks went through all of our fees, it talked, I think that's kind of too general. Should we talk about, at the charge-out rate, or I think when Parks did their fee schedule, it was $100 minimum?
So this really had more to do with equipment damage, like if somebody did something to a sprinkler head or a power box or something like that. We weren't necessarily thinking about charge-out rates for the parks guys actually clean stuff, looks like they clean the whole event ground. It would be if somebody messed something up, we would charge them what it took to fix what they messed up.
But it doesn't say that. As long as the commercial vendor
Right.
leaves the festival grounds in the condition he or she, they found it, and cleans up any messes made. Then if that's what it's intended to do, then we should talk specifically about damage, and those deductions will be made.
Okay.
so how do you want it to be worded? Because that's what it says on the facility use app.
That's what it says on what?
The
Facility use app.
The same
Basically-
exact wording.
Basically, we call up Steve and say, Steve, what's it gonna cost? Now, Steve says it costs $329, and we say, okay, dude, you owe $329.
Okay. Those were my only questions.
For Pat and Chad's reference, we are on number 13, discussion regarding proposed amendments to the manifest bylaws.
Okay.
And we've just had the discussion about what we should add or delete.
couple changes.
We have a
Okay.
few minor changes. Okay. Can you tell us what those changes are, Jeanette?
Sure.
I'm wondering, do I want to get Chris Hecht real quick? Because I think he's a big part of that, right?
He was.
Then he can hear it, and if there's something,
We're
or
over
we just
past
want to
it.
get
Yeah,
back to
I
that?
think.
Okay, all right.
Okay, but in the original one that you guys approved in November, the exclusivity clauses were totally removed. And the Marina Fest committee, or the people that were at the Marina Fest committee said, well, no, we don't want that. We still want the nonprofit vendors who participate to have exclusive rights to hot dogs or hamburgers
First
or
night.
soda or whatever. So that was added back in. The other thing that was changed was the arts and crafts vendors. They thought that that might be a good idea to have some arts and craft vendors present. So they're trying to solicit them. And that's about it.
Okay, and then the changes that we just
We just-
added tonight were?
Oh, the changes you added tonight, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, you want subsection C
village
to
board
say
or
the board or its
Okay.
designee.
Okay.
You want the lettering to be changed on that subsection. And
That was it?
that's
That was
it.
it.
Outrageous.
We thought you might see that. Did we make a motion already?
I'll make the
Yeah.
motion to accept that, to accept the proposed amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 14, consider a motion to accept the recommendation of the Communications Technology Committee regarding replacement and/or upgrades to the village's IT system.
Question. On page 141, it talks about purchasing new workstations and monitors. Just curious, dual monitors will be available for all administration personnel? So you're working on something, you gotta look something up for somebody else on the phone,
Right.
you don't have to exit,
Yeah.
okay. That's what I thought, but clarification.
It will make their life a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's definitely a time saver.
Yeah.
So
And
we,
not everybody wants them. So there are a couple of people who turned it down, so.
Well, otherwise you can get one big one and you just set the.
Right,
Yep.
yeah,
right,
You
Go
want
with
those
those.
pages and.
yep.
If we had more money, I'd say we should make everybody do it, but understanding we don't have that money.
And not everybody has a large space at their workstation to have dual monitors, so it's not really workable for everybody.
Tasha, have you had a chance to talk to anybody at the IT as far as the timing on this after we said we were gonna do this?
We have not nailed down the timing on this project. Like we talked about right before, at the last Common Tech meeting, we're kind of at the county's, on the county schedule a little bit, and they have some other projects that we're working around. Obviously, the top priorities are the email server and our server, and then it's getting us going on the rest of the workstations and things.
So even though we're looking to approve this tonight, it will be several months before
It
things are
might take,
implemented.
yes, it
longer
might
than
take 10 months before it's totally complete, but, yeah, as long as we can keep moving forward, that would be great.
What, January 1st, I'm not getting my new Surface?
The surfaces might be the last thing on the agenda.
The most important thing I see on there is email, and that's,
Yes.
I'm not getting my email consistently.
Yes.
It's very
Exactly.
maddening and frustrating to have that happen. So
Right, so the
there's
email
no
and the
reason that could
server,
have to wait.
right, and those kind of go hand in hand. We can't really do one without
Yes,
the
you
other.
can.
We can?
Absolutely can. You should get the email going as soon as Door County IT can do it.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Sounds good. And also, it will put less stress on the server for its remaining
True.
life.
True. For whatever it has left to give us.
We have a motion and a second.
I'll
All in
make that.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, so who made the motion?
I didn't think anybody did.
I thought we did.
I made
He
the motion.
Okay.
Second? Oh,
Right.
okay. And who seconded
I
it?
thought
I
Nate
thought
did.
Nate did.
Okay. Yes, I did. I mean,
Getting punch drunk here.
Item 15, consider a motion to approve the 2016-2017 list of election inspectors as proposed by the village clerk.
So moved.
second.
Discussion? Questions?
Nope.
Well, did you just say it's 16, 17? Shouldn't it be?
Oh, 17, 18.
18.
Just reading what it said.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good
Yep,
catch.
17, 18.
Yeah, okay.
So you're going to amend your motion for, make it the 17, 18?
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consider a motion to adopt and approve resolution number 371, which designated public depositories and signers.
We just went through this back in April 2017. We recently, obviously, are experiencing some employee turnover, and it seems like a good time to authorize new signers before we don't have enough to sign when we need them. In addition, I also added Associated Bank to the list of banks. We may look at them for some additional FDIC coverage and for some additional options for interest income, so.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 17, consider a motion to adopt and approve a resolution number 372, which amends the 2017 budget. You mean the 2018 budget?
No, 2017 budget.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 18, discussion on village bylaws, confirmation of president and his appointments. The only appointments that would come up tonight would be in relation to the Marina Fest Committee, which would nominate Sue Lundquist, Chris Heck, and Mike Scoville.
The two
Well, the two,
citizen members, and then Chris Heck being one of the nonprofits.
Yes.
yes.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Reporting county activities from County Supervisor Dave Lino. We just had the admin meeting today. The county board meets next week. The county is moving ahead with hiring the new EMS director. There were some captain's positions approved for EMS, and the admin committee and administration today decided to not hire those individuals, put them in place until the new director is in place, which makes perfect sense.
Sure.
So they can put their own team around them. That was the big issue today. Review the financial statements, consideration of a motion to approve the monthly bills, starting on page 153. I'll start it off. I'll make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $178,590.12.
I'll second.
Items, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, there were no questions?
Denise gave a look, so I think she just kept them to herself.
Doesn't have anything to do with the bill, it's gonna have to do with policy in the future.
Oh, okay.
No more cakes?
That's my supper tonight.
Report by the village administrator and village activities and projects.
He's coming.
Sorry.
Report by village administrator on village activities and projects.
Done. You guys saw the work, tonight, what it was, so, thanks everybody for slugging through what has so far been a 4 hour and 5 minute meeting.
Yeah. Never again for you, Zeke.
I guess I also should say thank you to each and every one of you for the time that you have spent with me, in coaching me and helping me learn and grow, and to helping me be both a better man and a better administrator in the process. I'm very grateful to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
good luck, Zeke.
Appreciate all your hard work.
You may want to come back sometime.
We'll get him in the golden years like.
Okay, so we're going to move to committee reports. We'll do the executive session last. Administrative has not met.
Let's see, where do we start?
Admin and comp oversight has not met. Communications technology has met, and you took care of the issue.
Yeah, we approved it.
Coastal byways.
Kathy's not here.
DCECD.
They're having listening sessions this Thursday and Friday. I think I'm gonna try and get to one on Thursday. And I'm gonna complain a lot about the fact that it's down in Sturgeon Bay. And there's only ones in Sturgeon Bay.
Thank you for that.
Well, maybe once they get the new building open here, they'll be easier to draw them up here. There's a multi-purpose room gonna be in there, I think.
Economic development has not met. Finance has not met. Fire.
Has not met.
Has not met, yeah.
Fire district exploratory has not met. Historical society.
We met on the 7th. Mainly went over the new building update. We had Pat Mangan printing out plans for the new barn, and we were tweaking it, and that was about it. Next meeting in January.
Holiday lighting has not met because the parks guys and Steve did such a wonderful job. The holiday lighting committee had nothing to do.
That's right.
I will say, I've heard so many compliments about those lights, countless from people all over this county. Most of them jealous non-residents. They really are, they are. It's pretty cool.
That's why I keep hearing that they're the best in Door County, which is great. Library.
Kathy's not here.
I know the minutes are in there. Marina.
Minutes in the packet, we had a meeting, we just had another meeting. Going well.
Getting stuff done?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you'll hear the marina's trying to do their part. The marina parking lot, we hear from Steve Mann, was required by the DNR to purchase. The marina purchased that lot. We want to try to do our part and create more spots. So went out and did measuring and brought trailers and cars and whatever else. And we have a proposal to restripe it that'll add, I think, between 20 and 30 additional single spots. It'll lose about 6 trailerable spots, but we're just going to try to enforce going up to the reserve. So try to foster more parking available.
Good.
Great.
I really liked the launcher parking receipts required, in the windows. I thought that was a great idea.
Good. Yep, that is a good idea. Marina Fest, we took care of that. Parking, should no longer be on here, correct?
Part of plan.
Parks. Has not met, other than the minutes that were in there. Personnel. Has not met. Plan Commission, I wish they'd get together and do something. Soon.
Drag our feet all the time.
SBAA. Tourism Zone.
Has not met.
Utilities.
I'm trying to get there. What did we talk about, Mike?
Well, we talked about the land lease,
That's right.
and that was accepted, well, it was given to the individual to sign, which he has taken it.
Yeah.
Yes. And we talked a little bit about our main lift station project, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That was about all, really. I mean, of significance.
Rate study.
Oh, rate study, that's right. Rate study, that's because you're the expert on that. Well, actually Stacy is. And then also raising some rates, which we can raise for septic and holding tank waste that comes in the area. We're the lowest ones.
Did some, market analysis, and we're
Yeah.
significantly under the average. So we're still gonna stay, I think, a little below
Pretty
it,
close.
but we're gonna come up much closer.
As far as the rate studies are going, the water rate study is essentially complete. There will be a public hearing with the PSC on January 9th.
Yep, 9th, 12th's a different day.
9th, okay? At 10 a.m. The notices and all of that stuff will be posted as required. The sewer rate study is underway. Stacy and I are working pretty diligently on that. We had to sit down with the auditors who gave us a second way to do things that is significantly easier. Yes, yay. So we're taking a look at that and making it work for us. So they gave us a generic template and we're tweaking that to make that work for us. It's much easier. I think it may be a good idea to do the easier rate study, and then the more difficult, more complex one every third cycle or something like that. So you would have a more in-depth analysis every 6 years. So underway, the idea is to have the rate changes occur at the same time. So.
Questions? I don't think I've missed anything else on the agenda, except to move into closed session.
Could I ask a question, just because I'll step up for a minute?
Sure.
The pre-3 project and approval of the ordinance number 254,
Yes, we approve that.
you did that?
Yes.
And,
Not the
Not
development
the development
agreement.
okay, so,
That will come next month.
Sarah?
I thought we were in agreed, we had an agreed form with Zeke, so I thought that was getting approved tonight, but.
What's absent from the development agreement, I guess is the question.
The one that's all full of red because it was the Johnson Development Agreement?
Yeah, we use the same stock form for everyone.
There's things missing, and
Okay.
I stopped rifling through it because it was very incomplete.
This was going through by Joe Goldberger, you guys' attorney, and this was going through by me. I guess I'm,
How could it, when there's typos and other things, how could that have been gone through with an attorney?
Well, are we sure that it got substituted in the new version? That's not still the first version from our Niagara Ridge form?
no, we use the Johnson Family Trust one.
Okay.
So, I left things in track changes so that you guys can see departures from standard development agreement and what would change differently here. So, ultimately, you guys make the decision where you will go,
But there were whole sections that were left out. If you look on page 27 of the Zoom, which is page 5, I believe, of the development agreement. Letter D, landscaping and site work including ongoing maintenance of public property, says not applicable.
Because it's referred to in the plans.
No, this section talks about recycling of the materials and other things that were in other development agreements that was left out. So I talked to President Lino, I spoke to Janelle about this and felt extremely uncomfortable with it in this form, that all the edits that would have to be made, that there is no way I would feel comfortable, even if all those edits were made, that we could approve this tonight.
Okay, we want you to be happy. We just were working with the form we were sent,
Yeah.
so, you know, we'll make whatever changes. We just need the feedback, I guess.
Yeah, ultimately, from my perspective, this is the same agreement that we use with other parties and that we've executed with any number of developments that have occurred in Sister Bay. If there's something that needs to be added, certainly it can be added. If there's anything that needs to be taken away, it can be taken away, but it is.
Do that with attorneys.
That would be my recommendation, ultimately get an agreement back and forth between the attorneys.
Janelle and I have already started working on it.
Okay.
And I don't think we're adding anything. If you want to send it to an attorney, certainly that's
No,
fine.
for staff, just subject, can we approve it today, subject to working out something that's agreeable to you?
Yeah, that's kind of where I would go with it. Ultimately, whatever edits are gonna need to be made, right, they're being driven, they're amenable to working out what it is that needs to be worked out, but ultimately to drive the development process along and to hit deadlines they need to hit.
Why do you need the development agreement if the project's been approved? We have approved plenty of projects without a development agreement at the time.
We want you guys to be happy. We can come back another time, but we would just love to wrap it up, to not drag it out. We thought what we submitted, since we didn't hear otherwise, we thought what the final draft of what was presented was acceptable, so.
Again, this is what I've
This is news to me,
time and time again, so it's news to me also. I see that, right, I see what you're looking at.
Okay, but Sarah's talking about what they presented.
So after last meeting, when the form that we used, okay, so we started off with the Niagara Ridge Developers Agreement, which was accepted last time. We started out with that as a starting place. Then we understood that the process has changed, or whatever the format that you want it to be in has changed. So Zeke sent us a new template, which our attorney, they went back and forth with some comments on, and I thought reached an agreement. So that's what I thought was enclosed today, but I guess that's not acceptable.
Yeah, to translate that a little bit, so ultimately, that form they presented went to the Plan Commission. Plan Commission said, where is our development agreement? Where's the form that we use, that standard? So what I did was sent them that standard form. Attorney Goldberger went through it, made the edits that he felt were appropriate. I went through it, made the edits that I felt were appropriate.
So you both, their attorney and you went through this document, and this is what we ended up with?
Yes. This is what you ended up with.
Something's wrong then. Yeah.
Okay, so should we work with you on the final changes, or who should we?
Janelle and I are going to clean up this whole document.
Okay.
Get rid of all the track changes from the Johnson development agreement. I also asked her, and she printed out for me the original boilerplate development agreement, and there's a long form and also a short form. So Janelle and I are going to work on that, I believe we talked about next week, right, Janelle? To clean this whole thing up, and so we can send it off to you at that time. Was just, okay.
Something that I had requested be added in at the Plan Commission that I didn't see in there, and this is quite honestly not so much a concern with this developer, but to make sure they build as presented. So if there's any major modifications, at least it goes back to Plan Commission chairperson. So we don't end up with
What we have in the
a
past.
substantial deviation.
I thought we put that in. I thought after last year, when we made substantial changes in some of the projects that were going on, and we found out about things that had occurred, I thought we had directed at that time that be put into the development agreement.
Developer agrees to build the project represented on the various attachments listed below. The village acknowledges the exact locations of interior walls and room sizes may vary from the attached drawings. The building and project in all its phases shall be constructed as follows. And it says to be inserted, which would be those plan sheets that we're talking about.
What happens if that developer doesn't comply with that? Then we stop all construction? I mean, what I was looking for is something that would be a financial penalty that would really slow people down from, I mean, because I don't know how that's gonna be a lot different than
So
what was in there in the
ultimately-
past.
Ultimately, it's a violation of the development agreement. Whenever someone doesn't do the thing that they said they were going to do, whatever form that exists. So the village has its police authorities to effectively execute a contract claim against the developer or to issue a notice of noncompliance with the village's zoning code.
And that was not in there with this particular agreement before the original agreement with the Johnsons.
How about Janelle and I will address your concern. I wrote it
That
on my
would be
notes.
great.
Okay.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, are we coming back for another need for approval, or are we approving subject to working something out with these two?
Yeah, we could approve it subject to what Denise and Janelle.
And subject to approval by the plan commission?
No.
Plan commission chairperson.
No.
Go ahead, Dave.
I don't like to have that kind of power.
Well, sometimes you need to have it.
I don't think they like it either.
Both sides have agreed to what's in here. I don't like the format or how it's put together, or how you have to find certain things in it. So if you put that together with Janelle, and you haven't changed, quote, the content of it, we could approve it subject to your approval. Janelle.
And yours,
Okay, and mine.
and yours.
Okay.
Okay.
So we need a motion to do that. So let's do that.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Well, so at some point, we will get a copy of it, that we know what was ultimately approved?
We'll
Yes.
put it in the
Right.
Next
packets
one's
of the
packet.
next meeting.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so no,
So you don't have to have another meeting.
no. Okay, but you granted a conditional use permit just for parcel 11A4, not the other one, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
So how about if I say, so that the development agreement for the pre-3 project, which was included in the meeting packets, is approved, but shall be revised by Berto and Supance and subsequently approved by Lino. So-
And they have to approve it too.
Okay. And their attorney?
Just by the group.
Right.
Okay.
You good, Janelle?
I think so. Can I just reword this again? That's. All right, how about, okay, that the development agreement for the pre-3 project, which was included in the meeting packets, is approved, but prior to the time that it is executed, it shall be revised by Berto and Supance and reviewed and approved by Lino as well as representatives of pre-3. Is that okay? Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
we still need to do this one, right?
We gotta do that one. However, you got Mr. Paquin, I don't know if you acted on his plans while I was out, but.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Okay, I knew you guys were doing something wrong as I walked out.
Well,
So the question becomes, understand we don't have a development agreement with Mr. Quinn based on the context of the plan commission meeting, but once again, you gotta hit construction deadlines. Does the board have any objections to him beginning to break ground?
to give it an early start? Is that what you're asking?
Has he seen a boilerplate development agreement? Did he get a general sense of?
Yeah, discussion regarding the review of revised plans, which was constructed at.
Yeah, but that was plan commission. That was a plan commission.
No, it's a joint item.
It's a joint,
Joint
Okay.
agenda.
No, then we did not address item number 7, the board.
Right, the board did not.
We are now.
Well, you
So
approved,
what are you suggesting?
you approved the revised plans.
Right.
Plan
The
commission.
plan commission.
Plan commission did, so the board should approve the revised plans and indicate its acceptance of the issuance of an early start permit without a development agreement in place and utilize the same process they're gonna do with pre-3 in order to achieve a development agreement with Mr.
So
Quinn.
do you want the same conditions?
Yeah, copy and paste.
Okay, so that's gonna be that the village board approves the revised plans which are submitted by Pat Quinn for an inn to be constructed at 2330 Mill Road as amended at this meeting on the condition that the angle parking which is depicted on the plans must be reviewed and approved by the village's engineers.
And
So,
subsequently develop, did I miss that? Subsequent development agreement would be
so you want, wait a minute,
authored by
1 second.
Berto and Supans.
Do we even need to say that much? I mean,
Yeah.
to Denise's
Well, I think
point,
it
we
should.
have, I mean, like, we need to do a development agreement. We've gotten,
So,
people
right,
started on projects without explicitly saying,
so, couple of things you have. Number one, you don't have a zoning administrator after Friday, so who does that person interact with? So effectively, what you're doing is designating a temporary zoning administrator. You have an interim administrator, right? But is that also your interim zoning administrator? You all have not made that designation. And,
Okay, that's a different discussion.
okay,
Let's go back to the development agreement with Mr. Quinn's property.
so,
It was not addressed by the plan commission.
So-
My understanding was Mr. Quinn was told that it wouldn't be addressed by the plan commission prior to the meeting.
somehow there needs to be a mechanism going forward to get it addressed, is what I'm saying.
We were gonna put it on a future agenda, he was told.
Right.
Yeah, the next agenda it's going to be on.
Okay, so you guys are in discussion at the plan commission level?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
Denise and I were gonna work on it.
a lot with everybody else's.
okay. So what does he do about an early start permit?
We can give him approval for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
One has nothing to do with,
that's my point.
Okay, so we want the same motion. Further, Quinn shall be granted an early start permit.
is it a permit?
Yeah, it's a permit.
Okay.
Shall be granted an early start permit.
I've got
Denise,
one
you were
more.
opposed to that at the plan commission level.
Will you be beyond foundation work within the next 30 days?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's kind of one, okay.
I think, is that the right answer?
Yeah, I mean, but ultimately, what would happen otherwise, the early start permit only covers the foundation. So if you got your foundation in and they still didn't have a development agreement together, you would then have to demobilize your construction project and probably have to pay another mobilization fee to get things going again.
I think we'll be comfortable with that. Obviously, we want to get going before it really moves forward. Thank you for the early start. But then I call it now next week. And we get going on it. Would that be raised to Randy and you, or?
The development agreement?
Yes,
Denise and I will work on it.
great.
And then we'll provide it to you, and then it'll go to plan commission.
And then to the board again?
Yeah, we'll probably have to have a special
Okay.
joint meeting again, because there's Sarah's project,
Okay,
that wedding thing, so
okay.
it'll probably be in early January.
For the plan commission.
Yeah,
Plan and board.
yeah.
Denise will do an early one? In January?
Probably the 3rd or the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
thank
I think
you.
that's a Wednesday or Thursday.
Mhm.
Okay.
The 3rd to the 4th of January, is that correct?
Yeah, maybe while we're all here, maybe everybody could look at their calendars and say if one day is better than the other.
Yeah, that would work. Do you want to vote on this motion then, and does somebody want to make it?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second if you need it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So are we talking about a joint meeting?
Mr. Bell said no.
I do not, we need some
Well,
separation.
sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to get something done, and if it's for one item or two items, okay, fine. I mean, it's not unusual to have a joint board meeting with planning,
If this is a
if you need to have it.
3 agenda, 3 people's
not
project.
25 agendas.
Right, but not this.
Not more than 3 items, okay.
Okay, so the regular board meeting would be the 9th.
Correct.
But we need to have it done before that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to have it done before the 8th.
Okay.
So everything needs to be wrapped up, so your development agreement needs to be wrapped up, your, whatever you're gonna have.
Yep.
Okay.
You said the 8th?
That was
Before-
Sarah Anderson's
About the-
deadline.
about the
Oh,
7th.
okay.
She has to be ready to go
I was
close.
gonna
on
say,
that.
So you
we
gotta
have-
do it the
we
week of
have
the
our-
1st.
Right.
So-
The Thursday is better for me and also this room.
Oh, you looked at the schedule.
It's also on my calendar.
So what day were you saying, Nate?
Thursday.
Thursday actually
The
works
4th?
better for me.
The 4th, okay?
I'm gonna be gone both days, so it's fine.
I have historical at 4 o'clock on Thursday.
That's the way it is.
That's a great time to do it, I can't be here.
Can we do it the regular time
Second
at
Tuesday
6
of
o'clock?
January, I don't book
Is
stuff.
2 o'clock
Book it
okay?
then.
Because
No.
Scott has a conflict.
No.
Nate's saying 6 o'clock.
6 or 5:30?
5:30?
No, because sometimes you make those meetings. I
Well,
was just
5:30, so
asking.
if it's at 6 o'clock, I get to go home and have dinner. If it's at 5:30,
Oh, no,
I
there's
don't.
no dinner.
Why should it be any
I
different?
haven't even had a piece
You're a
of cake for dinner
trustee.
yet.
I had cake.
You're a trustee now.
Yeah.
We don't get dinner.
We'll put some of that in the freezer for you.
No, we did it.
I'm with him, at 6 o'clock, I usually get dinner before.
I make better choices.
You make better choices. 6 o'clock's fine. Fine.
6 o'clock, okay. I'll just bail out of historical, that's all.
So this
They go-
is,
they go
I'm
on
sorry, the 3rd and the
indefinitely
4th that
anyway.
we.
Thursday, the 4th.
The
Thursday,
4th,
the 4th. All
6
right.
o'clock.
Board 6,
So
okay.
that's when your public hearing is gonna be then?
Correct.
So I'll get those notices out.
Pardon me if I interrupt. Does that mean that Denise and Janelle would have the developers agreement done by that point? Or
Yep.
obviously sooner so we could chat?
We'll get it to you sooner.
Okay. Thank you.
And then when all these projects are over, then we're going to take a break, right?
Couple months?
Yeah.
I don't know what else you got left to build.
Zeke's ran his village, so I'll just go on autopilot. At least 90 days.
Okay, we all done with this stuff?
No?
You. So Plan Commission, I'm asking a question. Plan Commission endorsed the parking arrangement on Jacob Management site. Do we need to take action at board level on that?
I don't think so.
Okay, just asking it out loud. Okay.
He was happy with what he walked out with.
He's still here.
He's still here.
Make sure we don't
He
take
said
it
he was
away.
in leave.
I think I was, that's why,
Did you change your mind?
No, no,
Can we get a foundation permit?
You wanna take that chance, I mean, it's a big gamble.
Okay, consider a motion to convene an executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation to which it is or likely to become involved. Motion by Lino.
Second?
Roll call. Lino, yes.
Berto, yes?
Duffy, yes?
Oh, yes.
Cadavra, yes.
Baker, yes?
Everybody? Okay.